After the divorce, President Fu kneels with his daughter to beg for reconciliation. Chapter 1. What is 3 years of marriage? In the Fu family villa, Shu Jin sat at the dining table, staring at the clock on the wall. It had already been 3 hours, and Fu Yunchen still hadn't come back. Her phone on the table vibrated. Shu Jin answered the call, and a sweet, soft voice came through. "Sis, are you still waiting for Yunchen? He just left here. I'm really sorry, I forgot today was your wedding anniversary. I should have let him leave earlier if I'd known." Shu Jin furrowed her brows. "Shu Yin, what are you showing off?" Shu Yin responded innocently, "I'm not showing off. I just want you to understand, Yunchen likes me. Why do you have to keep clinging to him? The more you do this, the more he'll dislike you." Shu Jin sneered, "Shu Yin, there are no outsiders now, so you can't even pretend anymore. Does Fu Yunchen know what you're like behind his back? We, the Shu family, adopted you, and this is how you repay us. How unfortunate." Shu Jin continued, "Fu Yunchen is my husband, and the Fu family needs a true lady from the Shu family, not you, an adopted daughter." Shu Jin hung up the phone, stood up, and dumped the food on the table into the trash. It was nearly 11 o'clock when Fu Yunchen finally came back. Shu Jin was asleep on the sofa, and the sound of him opening the door roused her from her stupor. Fu Yunchen didn't plan to speak to her. After removing his suit jacket, he went straight to his bedroom. She called out to him. "Can we talk?" Fu Yunchen turned around, his tone distant and indifferent. "What is it?" Shu Jin walked over and said, "Today is our wedding anniversary. Is it too much to ask for a drink together?" Fu Yunchen paused for a moment before walking toward the dining table. Shu Jin poured him a glass of wine and asked, "Fu Yunchen, have you ever liked me over these years?" Fu Yunchen answered expressionlessly, "What's the point of asking this now?" Shu Jin held back her tears and smiled. She already knew the answer. She had just been deceiving herself all this time. Now that the dream was over, she still felt a sense of loss. She had longed for Fu Yunchen's body for years but had never truly possessed it. Rather than letting Shu Yin have him, she might as well take the initiative. The drug mixed in the red wine soon took effect. Fu Yunchen realized something was wrong and pinched his brow with his hand. Shu Yin approached and helped him back to the bedroom. When her hand reached for the buttons on Fu Yunchen's shirt, he suddenly opened his eyes. His gaze was hot yet cold, filled with both desire and disdain. "The eldest daughter of the Shu family, and you're acting like this." Hearing the words, "shameless," Shu Jin's body stiffened before slowly breaking into a smile. She reached out and teasingly caressed Fu Yunchen's face, saying, "We're already married. What's shameless about that? How about you?" Shu Jin gave him a once-over. "We've been married all this time, and you've never touched me. Could it be you're not capable in that area?" The veins on Fu Yunchen's forehead bulged. His tone was cold and threatening. "Shu Jin." Shu Jin mocked as she slapped his face. "Be good. It'll be over soon." The next morning, when Shu Jin woke up, she found that Fu Yunchen had already left. The soreness and discomfort in her body reminded her of the craziness of last night. This was the first and last time. Shu Jin packed her bags, moved out of the villa, and left behind a divorce agreement. She had already booked a flight abroad. Just as she was getting her boarding pass, she received a call from Fu Yunchen. Fu Yunchen sounded very displeased. "Where are you?" Shu Jin answered, "Fu Yunchen, did you see the divorce agreement? This time, I'm letting you go, and I'm letting myself go." Fu Yunchen's tone became a little anxious. "Shu Jin." Shu Jin chuckled. "I won't take the property part of the divorce. Last night was nice though, consider it a tip for you." Without giving Fu Yunchen a chance to respond, she hung up the phone, took out her SIM card, and walked toward the boarding gate without looking back. 5 years later, at a city's airport, Shu Jin dragged her luggage and scrolled through her phone. A well-groomed little boy, carrying his own small luggage, trotted beside her. "Mummy, when we get home, will we see Grandpa and Grandma?" Shu Jin smiled slightly. "Of course." A news alert popped up on her phone screen, and as she saw the headline, she frowned. Fu and Shu family's alliance. Shu Yin is about to marry Fu Yunchen. Under the news, many people were lamenting the fact that their idol was no longer single. They had thought Fu Yunchen had been a single, wealthy bachelor for years. Seeing this, Shu Jin sneered coldly. Fu Yunchen had been single for years. Then, what was she? What was their 3 years of marriage? Chapter 2, Saving Nyan Nyan at the Airport. Shu Jin dragged her suitcase, her fingers trembling with strain as she replayed everything from the past. When she had first arrived abroad years ago, she had discovered she was pregnant. She had planned to give birth alone in a foreign country, but unexpectedly, Fu Yunchen didn't want to let her go. He even wanted her dead. A raging fire left her disfigured, forcing her to undergo plastic surgery and change her appearance. But her daughter, one of her twins, had. Shu Jin's eyes turned cold. This time, she was back to make Fu Yunchen pay the price for the death of her daughter. At that moment, a soft, chubby little body suddenly crashed into her arms. Shu Jin lowered her gaze and saw a little girl. When their eyes met, a wave of pain surged through her heart. This child, if her daughter had survived back then, she would have been about this age now, right? The little girl was exquisitely cute, with big eyes full of innocence and charm. Her expression was anxious, as though she was trying to avoid someone. When she saw Shu Jin, the little girl reached out with her soft, tiny hand, her eyes full of pleading, begging for help. Shu Jin glanced around and noticed a shady man looking through the crowd, as though searching for something. Could this little girl be running from him? Was he perhaps a human trafficker? Shu Jin quickly pulled the girl to the side of her suitcase and whispered, "Hide here and don't move." The suitcase was large enough to completely conceal the girl's body. As the man hurried over, Jiang Xingyu quickly pushed his small luggage forward and stood in front of the girl. He deliberately looked up and spoke to Shu Jin, "Mummy, what's for dinner?" Shu Jin forced a calm response, "We'll go to the supermarket first to buy some groceries for dinner." Jiang Xingyu pouted in dissatisfaction and complained, "But I want to eat KFC. You promised me yesterday." Shu Jin gave a quick glance at the man, who was standing not far away, still searching the crowd. Feigning natural indifference, she scolded, "No junk food for you." The man looked around the crowd and only saw a mother and son talking. Frustrated, he walked off in defeat. Once the man left, Shu Jin relaxed, pulling the little girl up and saying, "It's okay now." Looking at the little girl's cute and obedient demeanor, she couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy, gently patting the girl's head. Shu Jin asked, "What's your name, little one?" The little girl gazed at her with wide, watery eyes, looking almost mesmerized. When she didn't answer, Shu Jin tried again, "Where are your parents? I can help you contact them, all right." The little girl bit her lip, hesitated, and shook her head. Shu Jin tried several more times but couldn't get any useful information out of her, only learning that the girl's name was Nyan Nyan. Afraid that the man might return, Shu Jin decided to stop asking. She comforted the little girl, "Don't be scared. If you don't want to tell me, that's fine. It's not safe here. Come with me." Jiang Xingyu stepped forward, grabbed the little girl's hand, and puffed out his chest like a little man. "Don't be scared, little sister. Mummy and I will protect you. If any bad guys come, I'll chase them away." On the other side of the airport, Fu Yunchen stood tall and aloof in the crowd, surrounded by well-dressed bodyguards. The passengers around him quickly avoided eye contact, sensing the power and authority of the men in suits. The assistant bowed his head in shame. "Sir, we haven't found the young lady." Fu Yunchen's lips curled into a thin line, his eyes burning with anger. "You haven't found her, and you still have the nerve to come back?" The assistant quickly replied, "We'll go search again." At that moment, Shu Yin clicked her heels as she approached, linking her arm through Fu Yunchen's. "Yunchen, don't be angry. Nyan Nyan is still young. She likes to run around and play. Let them search a little longer. There's no need to rush, is there?" Fu Yunchen coldly pulled his arm away and asked, "What did you say to Nyan Nyan?" Shu Yin looked slightly wronged. I didn't say anything." Fu Yunchen's voice turned cold and distant. "If you didn't say anything, why would Nyan Nyan run off?" Shu Yin's eyes reddened as she sniffled, "Yunchen, you know how much I've cared for Nyan Nyan over the years. Ever since my sister abandoned her and threw her away, I've treated her like my own daughter. But Nyan Nyan has always misunderstood me. No matter how good I am to her, she won't get close to me." Her voice choked with emotion, she bit her lip and added, "I just want to care for her, so she doesn't misunderstand me." Fu Yunchen glanced at her sideways before turning his attention back to his assistant. "Keep looking. If you can't find her, don't come back. As the assistant and bodyguards left again, Shu Yin's eyes glimmered with a sense of frustration. That little illegitimate child, leaving her around would only spoil her plans. It would be best if she disappeared and never came back. Chapter 3, Reunion. Unable to get any news about his daughter, Fu Yunchen furrowed his brows tightly, his expression growing darker. Seeing this, Shu Yin stepped forward, twisting her waist. Yunchen, the meeting at the company is about to start. Maybe we should. Fu Yunchen cut her off, saying bluntly, you go back first. Shu Yin was unwilling to let go, but before she could say more, she was met with Fu Yunchen's stern and cold gaze. Don't make me say it a second time. Shu Yin bit her lip, feeling aggrieved, and reluctantly walked away in her high heels. Fu Yunchen's sharp gaze swept over the passengers in the airport. He noticed a figure that seemed familiar, and his heart eased slightly. Just as he was about to move forward, he saw the little girl stumbling into the arms of her parents. Fu Yunchen silently watched, then slowly turned his gaze away, closing his eyes in pain. Scenes from the past echoed in his mind. Back then, after that woman left, he found out that Shu Jin had visited the hospital and had an appointment with the obstetrics and gynecology department. It didn't take much to figure out that the woman was pregnant with his child. He had used all his power to find Shu Jin, but he was too late. When he finally found Fu Nian, his daughter was lying on the hospital bed, her body cold. The doctor had issued a critical diagnosis, telling the family to prepare for the worst. It was only because Fu Yunchen insisted on keeping Nian in an incubator for 6 months that she was miraculously brought back to life. But due to that ordeal, Nian's health had always been fragile. Every time he saw his daughter suffer from pain, his hatred toward that woman grew. As a mother, how could she abandon her own daughter like that? If it weren't for Shu Jin, Nian wouldn't have had to endure so much suffering over the years. At this moment, the assistant returned, hurrying over to report, Sir, we've found a lead on Miss. He pulled up the surveillance footage on his phone. This is the airport's CCTV. It shows that Miss was taken by a woman. But this woman, the assistant hesitated, glancing at Fu Yunchen's expression before continuing cautiously, she looks somewhat like Miss Shu Jin. Fu Yunchen's brows furrowed even deeper. He took the assistant's phone and focused on the screen. His cold, penetrating gaze locked on the tall figure, and it did indeed look like. He immediately ordered, go find her. At Yunhu Community, Shu Jin was in the kitchen wearing an apron, cooking dinner while the 2 children excitedly played with building blocks in the living room. She glanced over her shoulder and saw the 2 children interacting lovingly, a smile curving on her lips. Jiang Xingyu placed a block on top and asked, Sister, does this look like a dinosaur? Fu Nian gleefully repeated, dinosaur. She picked up another block and tried to place it on top of Jiang Xingyu's creation, but accidentally knocked his dinosaur over. Jiang Xingyu wasn't upset. Instead, he patiently taught her, that's not how you do it. Let me show you. Shu Jin's heart was conflicted. If her daughter hadn't suffered back then, would she be this age now, playing with her brother? She shook her head, pushing the painful memories aside, not wanting to show any emotion in front of the children. Shu Jin planned to take Fu Nian to the police station after dinner to file a report. After all, Nian wasn't her own child, and it wouldn't be appropriate to keep her by her side for too long. She called toward the living room, Xingyu, take your sister to wash up. Dinner's ready soon. Just as her words fell, there was a knock at the door. Jiang Xingyu responded, Mummy, I'll open the door. He eagerly trotted to the door, almost colliding with Fu Yunchen when he opened it. Jiang Xingyu blinked in confusion, looking up at the several well-dressed men in suits, his expression puzzled and curious. Fu Yunchen glanced at him briefly, and instantly his gaze locked onto the child. He blurted out, Shu Jin. It was too much of a resemblance. The child's facial features were almost identical to Shu Jin's from back in the day. Especially the nose and eyes, they looked as if they had been cast from the same mold. Jiang Xingyu, still curious, looked up at the handsome man and asked, Uncle, who are you? Shu Jin, hearing the commotion outside, frowned. Fu Yunchen's voice. Could it be she had heard wrong? She took off her apron and walked out of the kitchen, only to see the familiar figure blocking the door. A ripple of unease spread across her eyes, but she quickly masked it. After all these years, Fu Yunchen hadn't changed much, still in his sharp suit, looking as unapproachable as ever. But why was he here? Had he already figured out her identity? Shu Jin felt a moment of panic but tried to calm herself, reassuring herself that Fu Yunchen couldn't he possibly recognize her now. She clenched her fingers, standing tall and composed as she stepped forward. "Excuse me, sir. Who are you looking for?" Fu Yunchen lifted his gaze, staring at Shu Jin's face, frozen in place. Chapter 4, We Shall Never Meet Again. At this moment, a strange face came into view. The woman before him wasn't he like the Shu Jin he remembered, tall, elegant, and with a cold yet stunning beauty. This woman's appearance didn't he quite match Shu Jin's. Her fair skin, full lips, and sharp eyes were captivating, yet they carried a certain aggression, as if there was an edge to her beauty. Fu Yunchen quickly looked away, suppressing the faint sadness and disappointment that rose in his heart. At that moment, Fu Nian, who had been in the living room, ran out and threw herself into Fu Yunchen's arms, calling out clumsily, "Daddy." Hearing the child's address to Fu Yunchen, Shu Jin instinctively frowned. This was Fu Yunchen's child. Then, who was the child's mother? The child appeared to be about the same age as her own, which meant not long after she divorced Fu Yunchen and moved abroad, Fu Yunchen had gotten involved with the child's mother. Could it be that this was Fu Yunchen and Shu Yin's child? Thinking about her daughter who perished in the fire, Shu Jin's heart twisted with hatred. Why had Fu Yunchen been so ruthless toward them back then? Was it because of Shu Yin and her daughter? Was it that Fu Yunchen had wanted to get rid of them just to make room for Shu Yin and her daughter, so they could disappear forever? The thought of this possible truth caused Shu Jin's heart to bleed. She forced herself to calm down, lifting her eyes to look at Fu Yunchen, crossing her arms and beginning to taunt him. "So, you're the father of this child? I never would have imagined that someone like you could be such a reckless parent." The assistant couldn't hold back anymore and stepped forward, retorting, "Miss, what do you mean by that?" However, Fu Yunchen gave him a warning look, and the assistant, realizing his mistake, quickly stepped back, nervously lowering his head. Shu Jin, however, took a more confrontational stance, firing back, "Isn't that the case? There are so many human traffickers these days. This child is so young, and you, as parents, leave a child like this at the airport, yet still have the audacity to come knocking on my door." Seeing Shu Jin's relentless barrage of accusations, Fu Yunchen's eyes grew even more complex and profound. He could sense that this woman before him seemed to have some hostility toward him. But this was clearly their first time meeting, so why? Unless. Fu Yunchen's demeanor deepened, his thin lips parting as he asked, "Who are you?" Shu Jin, like a prickly hedgehog, shot back, "What does it matter who I am?" Fu Yunchen, in a calm tone, replied, "As you mentioned earlier, there are many human traffickers these days. You took my daughter without permission. How do I know you're not a trafficker? If you want to clear up any misunderstanding, please prove your identity." Shu Jin sneered coldly, becoming visibly irritated. "Are you out of your mind? I saw your daughter almost being taken by traffickers at the airport. I took pity on her and brought her home temporarily. You can't even thank me, and now you doubt my identity." Her cold demeanor clashed with Fu Yunchen's, matching him step by step. "Is this how you treat your benefactors?" The room fell into silence, especially the assistant, who was nearly petrified. Though he didn't know who this woman was, in his memory, the only person who dared speak to their boss like this. He had followed Fu Yunchen for so long and only knew one person like that, his wife, who had mysteriously disappeared years ago. Fu Yunchen, though unfazed, furrowed his brow slightly. The feeling was too similar. Only that woman would be so prickly and confrontational, unwilling to retreat even an inch, no matter what. But why could it not be Shu Jin? Jiang Xingyu, sensing the tension, stood protectively in front of his mother, puffing his little chest and saying angrily, "Don't bully mommy." Fu Nian also tugged at her father's hand, her face full of pleading as she shook her head. Fu Yunchen lowered his gaze at his daughter, then continued, "This is a simple matter. If you truly care about Nian's safety, you should present your identification and clarify the misunderstanding. Or is there another reason you're reluctant to do so?" Shu Jin's heart began to race, her pulse quickening with nervousness. Although she had changed her appearance and knew Fu Yunchen wouldn't recognize her, standing face to face with him still made her uneasy. Why did Fu Yunchen insist on seeing her ID? Was he suspicious of something? After a moment of silence, Shu Jin turned around, retrieved her wallet from the living room, and pulled out her identification for Fu Yunchen to see. Fu Yunchen glanced at it briefly. It wasn't Shu Jin, but a woman who had just returned from abroad, someone with no apparent connection to Shu Jin. Shu Jin took back her identification, her expression unreadable. Well? Do you believe me now? Fu Yunchen's demeanor remained composed as he softly said, I apologize. He paused, then added, You saved my daughter. I will come by another day to thank you properly. Shu Jin coldly sneered, No need. Please leave my home, and let us never meet again. With that, the sound of the door slamming echoed through the room, and father and daughter were ushered out. Fu Yunchen glanced back meaningfully at the door number, holding Fu Nian's hand as they walked downstairs. Inside the car, his dignified and aloof figure sat in the dim light, exuding an air of mystery and melancholy. After a long pause, Fu Yunchen ordered, I want to know everything about that woman from just now. No matter how much someone tries to conceal their identity, there will always be clues. If that woman's identity is even slightly fabricated, it will not escape his notice. Chapter 5, I'm talking to you. The next morning, a graceful figure appeared at the entrance of the Gene Engineering Research Institute. Shu Jin was dressed in a light green dress, with a cream-colored blazer on top. She wore high heels, her fair skin and slender legs highlighted by her outfit, her figure graceful and alluring. She quickly became the center of attention, with passers-by turning their heads to admire her, making her the most striking sight in the area. Are you Dr. Song Center? It's such a pleasure to meet you. Please follow me. The teacher who was responsible for meeting Shu Jin couldn't believe her eyes when she saw the beautiful woman before her. After all, Dr. Song Center was the most renowned figure in the field of gene engineering and had won prestigious awards in top research teams. But she was so young. Shu Jin nodded, giving a soft, indifferent acknowledgement. The teacher's gaze then moved past Shu Jin and noticed their little tail following her. She paused for a moment. Who is this? Jiang Xingyu, visiting the Gene Engineering Research Institute for the first time, was curious about everything around him. He looked around, peeking here and there. When he noticed the staff looking at him, he grabbed Shu Jin's finger and playfully asked, Mommy, after you're done, can we go play? Shu Jin frowned and emphasized, We're going to school. Jiang Xingyu pouted, looking dejected. But I already know everything the teacher at school teaches. The teacher, overhearing the conversation, almost froze in place had he heard that Dr. Song was married and had a child. They arrived at Shu Jin's office just then, and a young man rushed over, panting, Professor Shu, something's wrong. The Research Institute's data entry system is down. We might have to wait a bit to hand over the work to Dr. Song. The teacher glanced at Shu Jin, who was waiting nearby, and frowned. This isn't good. Go find someone from the technical department to fix it. The young man nervously replied, The technical department is at a meeting in the province today. They won't be back until the afternoon. Just then, Jiang Xingyu, who had been silent, suddenly looked up and sweetly said, Uncle, can I take a look? The young man was taken aback. Who's your little one? How can you be in a place like this? You're not supposed to. Before he could finish, Jiang Xingyu skipped over to the computer, struggled to climb into the chair, and began investigating. The little boy tapped away at the keyboard and said, Mommy, I'll fix this for you, but you have to take me out to play. Shu Jin didn't stop him. In fact, she simply responded with a faint, okay. As everyone stood in stunned silence, Jiang Xingyu quickly typed, and suddenly the screen that had been frozen blinked and came back to life, with data files popping up. In a matter of moments, the system was fixed. The young man rubbed his eyes in disbelief. Could this really be happening? Dr. Song, your child is amazing. This is a genius. I feel like all my years of studying were a waste. This little kid is better than me. Jiang Xingyu ignored the praise, running back to Shu Jin's side and whined, Mommy, let us go play. Shu Jin smiled a sly smile and said, When you're done with kindergarten, we'll go. After finishing her work at the institute, Shu Jin drove Jiang Xingyu to school. From a distance, she noticed a familiar figure. Her gaze flickered Shu Yin and the child she had seen yesterday. She never would have thought that the two kids were attending the same school. Fu Nian was standing at the entrance of the kindergarten, refusing to go inside, while Shu Yin appeared increasingly impatient. Nian, if you don't go to school, you won't be a good child anymore. Your mommy and daddy won't want you. Shu Yin pushed the child roughly, almost causing Fu Nian to fall. She continued, look at you, not as healthy as the other kids, not as smart either. It's already a blessing that your parents sent you to school. How can you be so stubborn and disobedient? Upon hearing this, Shu Jin furrowed her brow. Although she had long known that Shu Yin was a lunatic, saying such things to a child was beyond comprehension. Fu Yunchen stood there, her large backpack still on her back, biting her lip, tears welling up in her eyes. Shu Yin couldn't wait any longer. She grabbed Fu Yunchen's arm and began dragging her into the school. Hurry up. I don't have time to waste here, I still have a meeting at the company. Fu Yunchen refused to move, struggling to step back. They were at an impasse, and Shu Yin's grip left red marks on her daughter's arm. Jiang Xingyu couldn't stand it any longer. He quickly ran over and pulled Fu Yunchen behind him, standing protectively in front of the girl. Don't bully my sister. Can't you see she's about to get hurt? Shu Yin was growing more impatient. Folding her arms, she stood up straight, sneering, who are you to meddle? Mind your own business. She looked in Jiang Xingyu's direction as he approached, but when her eyes caught sight of Shu Jin, she froze and her eyes widened in disbelief. Shu Jin. No, it can't be that bitch. Shu Yin regained her composure and took a deep breath. The woman in front of her looked like Shu Jin, but it couldn't be her. Even if she were turned to ash, she would never forget that bitch's face. Yet, perhaps because of her hatred for Shu Jin, Shu Yin still felt deeply repulsed by this woman. Seeing no one around, she grew even more arrogant. Who are you two? I'm disciplining my child. What does it have to do with you? You ill-mannered little brat, get out of the way. Shu Yin tried to drag Fu Yunchen out from behind Jiang Xingyu, but the little boy wouldn't budge. The child looked up, his voice sweet and firm. Auntie, mommy says children shouldn't use bad words. It's impolite and unrefined. Women like you, who are so malicious, are like villains from TV shows. Nobody will like you. You? Shu Yin was so furious, she almost twisted her nose. She raised her hand to strike Jiang Xingyu. But just as she was about to do so, Shu Jin's cold eyes flashed, and she rushed forward, pushing the child behind her, grabbing Shu Yin's wrist, and giving her a sharp slap. The resounding sound of the slap echoed through the air. Shu Yin stood there, stunned, her face turning bright red. She covered her cheek, eyes wide in disbelief. You dare hit me? Do you know who I am? Shu Jin lifted her chin slightly, a cold smile on her lips. I'm hitting you, and I don't care who you are. Just then, a luxury sports car rolled to a stop at the side of the road. A man stepped out of the car, his polished shoes gleaming, his neatly tailored suit fitting perfectly. His handsome face bore a cold, distant expression. Fu Yunchen's eyes lit up when she saw the man and ran excitedly toward him. With her chubby little arms, she wrapped herself around Fu Yunchen's leg, tilting her head and calling out in a stumbling voice. D-Daddy. Chapter 6, Yunchen's time is running out. Shu Yin's face was ferocious, and she was about to explode, but when she noticed Fu Yunchen coming, she immediately changed to an aggrieved expression. She covered her face and ran to Fu Yunchen, calling tenderly, Brother Yunchen. Fu Yunchen noticed the bright red 5 fingerprint on Shu Yin's face, and then noticed the woman at the entrance of the kindergarten. Is it her? Fu Yunchen's eyes moved, but quickly restrained, regained his calm, and asked, What's going on? Shu Yin had tears in her eyes, bit her red lips and said, I came to send Yunchen to school, and met this mother and son, and they suddenly beat people. Looking at Shu Yin's inconsistent performance, Jiang Xingyu was almost stunned. On the contrary, Shu Jin's face was calm. After all, it was not the first time she saw this woman perform Sichuan opera face changing, and she had long been accustomed to it. Shu Yin wanted to complain, but she heard Jiang Xingyu's angry and childish voice. You're talking nonsense, it was you who scolded me first. Shu Yin was still pretending to be pitiful. I didn't, how could I do such a thing? It was obviously this mother and son who started to pick a fight first. Jiang Xingyu snorted, You don't admit it, right? He took out the recorder from his pocket and said, Fortunately, I recorded it just now, don't try to quibble. Seeing the recorder, Shu Yin's face changed, and her expression became tangled again. Shu Jin raised the corner of her lips calmly. Didn't expect it. I used to like to pretend to be pitiful, but now I'm in the hands of a little kid. Jiang Xingyu clicked on the recorder, and the conversation with Shu Yin just now came out. The more he listened to the end, the deeper Fu Yunchen frowned. Jiang Xingyu pouted and said, "This aunt is so fierce. She kept pulling my sister. I ran over to protect her." Shu Yin argued, "You are talking nonsense. I just wanted Nyan Nyan to go to school quickly." Jiang Xingyu responded, "Then you can't curse people? You still want to hit me?" Shu Yin was speechless and looked at Fu Yunchen with a guilty look. "I didn't hit him. It was obviously them who hit me." At this time, Shu Jin spoke, "Sir, this lady just insulted my child. I don't know what your family education is like, but in our family, we will never say such insulting words in front of children." She glanced at Shu Yin coldly, "If I hear you say such words again, it will be more than just a slap in the face." Shu Yin was completely stunned, but she couldn't deny the evidence. She could only grab Fu Yunchen's arm and said, "Brother Yunchen, listen to my explanation." "Enough." Fu Yunchen shook her hand off coldly, but turned to Shu Jin to apologize. "Miss, I'm very sorry. You saved Nyan Nyan, and now my family has accidentally offended you." Fu Yunchen stared at the figure in front of him, but the woman of that year flashed in his mind involuntarily. He paused and said, "To express my gratitude and apology, I would like to treat you two to dinner." Shu Jin refused coldly, "No." She glanced at Shu Yin and said meaningfully, "Take care of your family, don't offend me again." She dragged Jiang Xingyu to the kindergarten, leaving Fu Yunchen and Shu Yin with Fu Nyan Nyan frozen in place. Shu Yin bit her lower lip and wanted to complain, "Brother Yunchen, don't listen to their nonsense, it was obviously them first." Fu Yunchen asked coldly, "Is this how you educate Nyan Nyan?" He looked into Shu Yin's eyes and warned, "Don't do it again, or I will reconsider your right to raise Nyan Nyan." After hearing this, Shu Yin's face changed. "Doesn't this mean reconsider marrying her?" After all, the reason why Fu Yunchen agreed to marry her was largely because of Fu Nyan Nyan. She could only continue to act pitiful. "Brother Yunchen, listen to my explanation. I didn't mean to curse, wasn't it to protect Nyan Nyan? What good things can that mother and son have? I just wanted to send Nyan Nyan to school." They passed by and saw that Nyan Nyan was different from other children, and deliberately laughed at Nyan Nyan. She frowned and said seriously, "I didn't want to see Nyan Nyan humiliated, so I was in a hurry to take Nyan Nyan to school, but they turned around and accused me of abusing Nyan Nyan. Nyan Nyan was raised by me, could they feel more sorry for Nyan Nyan than me?" Fu Yunchen frowned slightly, he didn't see what happened just now. There were only 4 people at the scene, he could only turn to Fu Nyan Nyan and ask, "Nyan Nyan, is that so?" Fu Nyan Nyan quietly raised her head, noticed Shu Yin's resentful and gloomy eyes, her eyes flashed, and she didn't dare to speak. Shu Yin immediately said, "Look how scared they are of Nyan Nyan. I never thought there would be such people among Nyan Nyan's classmates." She took the opportunity to suggest, "Why don't we transfer Nyan Nyan to another school? What if they bully Nyan Nyan when we're not here?" Fu Yunchen didn't answer, his eyes were always on the figure walking in front of him. Thinking back to the way this woman took Fu Nyan Nyan home and took good care of her yesterday, he couldn't imagine that they would laugh at Nyan Nyan. Shu Yin's chattering voice was still echoing in his ears, and Fu Yunchen was a little impatient. He said lightly, "I'll just take Nyan Nyan in." Shu Yin's face was embarrassed again, "Then I." Fu Yunchen said, "You go home first." Shu Yin was a little unwilling, glanced at the figures of Shu Jin and Jiang Xingyu walking in front, and secretly held her fingers. She asked, "What about Nyan Nyan's transfer to another school?" Fu Yunchen said, "No rush for the time being." Shu Yin could only leave reluctantly. Fu Yunchen sent his daughter to the kindergarten. Through the glass, he watched Fu Nianyan playing with other children with mixed feelings. "Mr. Fu, Nyan Nyan's time is running out. Children like her will not live past 5 years old at most. You must have a child with Miss Shu Yin as soon as possible." The doctor's words kept echoing in his ears, like a warning bell, counting down the days for his daughter's life. After a long time, Fu Yunchen stepped back, walked out of the kindergarten, and came to the car on the side of the road. Just at this time, Shu Jin also came out and looked at Fu Yunchen. Looking at those familiar eyes, Fu Yunchen felt mixed emotions, and there was an intuition lingering in his heart. Shu Jin glanced at him coldly, got into the car, and drove away. Fu Yunchen retracted his gaze, but his phone suddenly vibrated, and he chose to answer it. The assistant's voice came out. "Sir, we have found the detailed information of Miss Song." Fu Yunchen raised his eyes, stared at the car that Shu Jin drove away, and asked, "What's the matter?" The assistant replied, according to our investigation, Miss Song Center has been living abroad for many years and has never come back. There is no problem with her identity certificate. Chapter 7 Strangers are not welcome in my home. In the evening, Shu Jin picked up the children and came back for dinner. The two sat at the dining table. Jiang Xingyu was eating rice while chattering, "Mommy, I didn't expect that my sister and I would go to the same kindergarten. Can I go to play with my sister in the future?" Shu Jin remembered the scene of Fu Yunchen and Shu Yin standing side by side at the entrance of the kindergarten. She responded coldly, "She is not your sister." Jiang Xingyu's expression became aggrieved, and he whispered, "But I like my sister." Shu Jin was in a complicated mood and put down the chopsticks in her hand. In fact, she also liked Nyan Nyan. She didn't know why, but she always felt that she and the child seemed to be inextricably linked. Nyan Nyan was about the same age as her daughter. If the child was still alive. Every time Shu Jin thought of this, her heart ached. She would never forget who killed her daughter. Therefore, Nyan Nyan's existence was constantly reminding her daughter's tragic death and the hatred in her heart. The doorbell suddenly rang outside. Shu Jin stood up to open the door. She lowered her eyes, but met a familiar face. Fu Yunchen, carrying a huge school bag, stood at the door with a silly and aggrieved look on her face, as if she was a puppy asking for shelter. Shu Jin frowned and asked calmly, "Why are you here?" Fu Yunchen pointed at her little finger and looked at the direction of the living room with eager eyes. At this time, Jiang Xingyu also came out. Seeing Fu Yunchen, Jiang Xingyu's eyes lit up instantly. "Sister." Fu Yunchen turned to Shu Jin and said with difficulty, "Brother." Since meeting this child, Shu Jin felt that Fu Yunchen seemed different from other children. Her body was very weak and much thinner than ordinary children. Moreover, children of her age could speak fluently, but Fu Yunchen seemed to be able to speak only some relatively short words and sentences, and could not express her complete meaning. "I really don't know what this child has experienced. How could she become like this?" Facing Fu Yunchen's watery and pleading eyes, Shu Jin felt a pain in her heart and softened again. Although she knew that this was the child of Shu Yin and Fu Yunchen, she still couldn't be cruel enough to shut her out and ignore her. Shu Jin sighed and said, "Come in first." Bringing the child in, she asked again, "Have you eaten?" Fu Yunchen shook her head pitifully and tugged at the corner of Shu Jin's clothes with great attachment. Shu Jin said, "It's just right to go together." She served some soup to Fu Yunchen and let the two children eat in the living room. Then she took out her mobile phone. She originally wanted to contact Fu Yunchen directly, but suddenly remembered that with her current identity, she was just a stranger to Fu Yunchen and shouldn't have his contact information. So, she contacted the kindergarten teacher and asked the teacher to tell Fu Yunchen to come and pick her up. When Fu Yunchen arrived, Fu Yunchen had fallen asleep. Shu Jin was sitting on the sofa in the living room and hugging her. The little girl's face was flushed, as if every inch of her skin was permeated with a milky fragrance. She didn't forget to grab Shu Jin's clothes with her little hands when she fell asleep. Seeing such a scene, Fu Yunchen was obviously stunned. The assistant and nanny behind him were almost shocked. The little lady seemed cute and adorable on the surface, but she was actually very difficult to take care of. She would disappear from time to time. It was okay when her husband was at home, but when he was not, the little lady would not even eat. Every time she was called to sleep, their whole family had to coax her for several hours. Never expected that the little lady could fall asleep so peacefully in the arms of this woman. After school, Fu Yunchen originally wanted to pick up his daughter from kindergarten, but he was worried when he learned that his daughter had left early. He rushed all the way here, worried and anxious, and the warm scene of Shu Jin holding the child just hit his eyes. He approached slowly, carefully, for fear of waking up the little princess in his arms. The always cold and deep eyes softened the moment they touched his daughter. Fu Yunchen puffed her lips and whispered, "Mom." These two short words made Fu Yunchen frown even deeper, and his handsome expression could not hide his joy and excitement. All along, Fu Yunchen could only shout out the word, "Dad." She could not learn the word, "Mom," no matter how she was taught. But she did not expect that her daughter would shout out this word to this strange woman. Shu Jin was close to Fu Yunchen, watching his expression, and felt ironic in her heart. If her daughter was still alive, would Fu Yunchen cherish her so much? No, Fu Yunchen wished that they and their son would die sooner, even that daughter. Thinking of this, Shu Jin suddenly couldn't hold the child in her arms anymore. She raised her hand and pretended to give the child to Fu Yunchen. Fu Yunchen made a gesture to silence her. Facing Shu Jin's puzzled look, he said, "Don't move, let her sleep." Shu Jin couldn't believe it. What was Fu Yunchen doing? Let her hold his daughter to sleep. The next moment, Fu Yunchen said, "I can give money." Shu Jin found it even more ridiculous. The image of her daughter dying weakly in the hospital flashed in her mind. She was so angry that she trembled. She sank her heart and wanted to throw the child directly into Fu Yunchen's arms and drive them away. But when she lowered her head and saw Fu Niannian's affectionate and attached appearance, and noticed the child's little hand grabbing the corner of her clothes, her heart hurt again. Shu Jin swallowed her breath and didn't throw the child out. She sneered and mocked Fu Yunchen. "What does this mean?" "Sir, do you know there is a saying in China, that dogs look down on people?" Shu Jin couldn't vent her anger on the child, so she could only pour all her anger on Fu Yunchen, saying, "I took your daughter in out of kindness, not for money. Do you think you can get everything with money? Sorry, I don't care about this little money." Because she was afraid of waking up Fu Niannian, she didn't even dare to speak loudly, so the atmosphere between the two was a little ambiguous. Fu Yunchen raised his eyes and looked at her. Instead of being angry, he chuckled. He felt that this woman seemed to have thorns all over her body. She would get angry when she met him and never gave him a good face. Behind him, the assistant asked cautiously, "Sir, should we go back?" Fu Yunchen replied, "No." "But..." The assistant hesitated and reminded, "It's late now, the old lady and the others are still waiting." Fu Yunchen ordered, "Tell them that Nian Nian and I are staying overnight." Shu Jin frowned. What does that mean? Not only is her daughter staying at her house, but now even Fu Yunchen wants to stay. He found that when Fu Yunchen said he was staying overnight, he was staring at her, which made her feel a little guilty and depressed. Shu Jin replied, "I'm sorry, strangers are not welcome in my house." Fu Yunchen said, "Miss Song likes to help others. What's wrong with taking us in for one night?" Chapter 8 Conditions of Cooperation. In order not to wake up the child, Fu Yunchen deliberately leaned down and lowered his voice. Shu Jin tightened her hand holding the child slightly. In the past, she could hardly see Fu Yunchen's good face. Now, Fu Yunchen could be so ambiguous in front of a strange woman for the sake of his and Shu Yin's child. Shu Jin was about to hand the child back. Fu Niannian in her arms gently pinched a strand of her hair and whispered, "Mom." She had also imagined that her daughter would call her so sweetly. For some reason, she nodded, only this time. Fu Yunchen's brows relaxed. Shu Jin hugged the child in her arms tightly, looked at Fu Yunchen coldly, and added, "But you can only sleep on the sofa. I think this gentleman is willing to spend a lot of money for his daughter, so he can naturally endure a night on the sofa." The assistant was shocked. "How could my young master?" "Sure." Fu Yunchen interrupted his assistant and looked at the double sofa. There were even a lot of messy luggage on it. "But all these are not as good as Nian Nian's peaceful night's sleep." He sat down calmly, his meticulous suit and messy luggage formed a sharp contrast. Shu Jin didn't expect him to agree so readily, and he didn't hesitate to take Nian Nian to the room. Before closing the door, she didn't forget to add, "There are no extra quilts at home. Mr. looks strong and sturdy, so he should be able to hold it." After speaking, Shu Jin even let out a chuckle. Fu Yunchen's beautiful eyebrows raised slightly. This woman seemed to be very hostile to him. The next morning, Fu Niannian woke up from the warm embrace and met Shu Jin's smiling eyes, accompanied by a warm greeting. "Awake." Fu Niannian was stunned for a moment, grabbed Shu Jin's clothes tightly, and nodded slowly. Shu Jin smiled and picked her up, put on her coat, and carried her out. "Niannian." Fu Yunchen suddenly spoke. Fu Niannian was completely awake, looked at Fu Yunchen, but did not let go of Shu Jin. His eyes wandered between the two. Shu Jin looked at Fu Yunchen. After a night on the sofa, he was still in a suit and leather shoes, without a wrinkle on his cuffs. It looked like he had not suffered a single bit of hardship. However, she slept with the sweet and soft child in her arms for a whole night. Shu Jin decided not to argue with him for the time being, and handed Niannian to her. The soft little hands tightly grasped her collar, and her eyes were full of pleading. "Don't leave." The big watery eyes reflected her own figure. Shu Jin's words of rejection were stuck in her throat, and she couldn't say them for a long time. Fu Niannian didn't get the answer she wanted, and her eyes were filled with tears, and she hugged Fu Yunchen's neck again. "Dad. I want to come again." It was the first time that Nian Nian was so close to a woman. Fu Yunchen's eyes were deep, and he spoke first. "Okay. I haven't agreed yet." Shu Jin's face was cold. Fu Nian Nian almost cried. Shu Jin's heart softened. But she really didn't want to have any more personal involvement with Fu Yunchen. Everything she had experienced in the past few years, it was all thanks to Fu Yunchen. She lost her own daughter. Did she have to obey Fu Yunchen and Shu Yin's daughter? She had to refuse. But Fu Nian Nian reached out, hugged her softly, and said to her, "I like it." Shu Jin's body was stiff in place, and her ears were buzzing. If her daughter was still alive, she would probably hug her like this and say she liked her. She couldn't refuse the child's request and straightforwardness. Shu Jin lowered her eyes with a complicated look. Fu Yunchen hugged the child before her, stood up slowly, and made a final decision: "We will visit each other often." "No. You don't want the child to be sad, do you?" Fu Yunchen looked to the corner. Jiang Xingyu was looking at Fu Niannian expectantly, as if he was looking at his own sister. He was holding two children's breakfasts in his hand, and he seemed to be looking forward to having breakfast with Nian Nian for a while. Shu Jin was speechless for a moment, clenched his fists, but still couldn't bear to say harsh words in front of the two children. Then Nian Nian, "See you next time." Fu Niannian's eyes lit up and nodded heavily. Fu Yunchen left his business card and walked out with Fu Niannian, contact in time. Behind him, Shu Jin took several deep breaths. "Mom, have breakfast." Jiang Xingyu stepped forward and held her. Shu Jin nodded, but her eyes were fixed on the Bentley downstairs. Before the Bentley completely drove away from the building, she picked up her mobile phone and sent a text message to Fu Yunchen. "Goodbye." Fu Yunchen sat in the car and called back. Only mechanical electronic sounds rang. He had been blocked. What a fickle woman. Genetic Engineering Research Institute. The senior executive frowned and slapped the contract in front of Shu Jin. "How do you negotiate cooperation with others? You suddenly changed your mind when it was just the last minute. Do you know how much loss it will bring to our institute?" Shu Jin picked up the project book. This was the cooperation project she was responsible for negotiating before. There were 5 meetings and 3 revisions. Everything had been finalized and there should be no loopholes. Why did they suddenly change their minds? Shu Jin asked. "Because you negotiated improperly." The executive pointed at her nose with a fierce look. "If this batch of equipment is wasted, you can wait for the responsibility." After speaking, the executive knocked on the door and left. The huge noise startled Shu Jin and suddenly tightened her fingertips. A sudden change of mind at the last minute is tantamount to causing losses to both parties. Why would the other party do such a thankless task? There must be something fishy about this. After thinking about it, Shu Jin rubbed his temples and asked others to investigate the whole story. The colleagues at the research institute were well informed and got the answer quickly. This batch of equipment is the core product of a subsidiary of the Fu Group. All sales must be approved by the head office. The problem with your project may be the approval of the head office. So, their head office changed its mind temporarily. 9 out of 10, but we are not familiar with the senior executives of the Fu Group. The colleague left only this sentence and pushed the door open to leave. Fu Group. Fu Yunchen. After going around in circles, they are actually related again. Shu Jin's eyes were slightly depressed, and she paced back and forth in the room anxiously. She was thinking about which senior executives of the Fu Group could try to contact. The door was suddenly pushed open. People from the Fu Group filed in. The leading man was wearing a dark blue suit. His Italian handmade leather shoes landed slowly and steadily on the soft carpet. His slightly cold eyes fell on Shu Jin. "Let's talk about that batch of equipment." After speaking, the man raised his fingertips lightly, and the team behind him left in an orderly manner and closed the door. Shu Jin half leaned against the conference table, hugged his arms and looked at him. "Can I know the reason why the approval was not passed?" Fu Yunchen took a step closer. "You can only know the conditions for resuming cooperation." A chill ran up Shu Jin's back, and he subconsciously avoided the man's approach. "What are the conditions?" Fu Yunchen raised his eyebrows. "Nian Nian likes you very much and wants to meet you more often." Chapter 9 calculated everything. It was for his daughter again. Shu Jin's round nails pierced into the palm of her hand, causing fine pain. She suppressed her anger, occasionally recalled her dead daughter, and tried to turn her thoughts back to business. Her revenge plan after returning to China has just begun. The previous meetings with Fu Yunchen were unexpected, and she didn't want to have so much contact with Fu Yunchen so early. If Fu Yunchen discovered her thoughts, all her efforts would be in vain. But this batch of equipment for the institute is also her first step to take root in the institute. When she was in a dilemma, after thinking for a while, Shu Jin came up with an answer: "I'll think about it." But soon, she remembered that the team Fu Yunchen brought in just now was almost all from the project team. Her face changed slightly, and she looked at Fu Yunchen suspiciously. Or, President Fu brought so many people today, ready to finalize the deal today, and force me to agree to your conditions. Facing the woman's suspicious eyes, Fu Yunchen smiled instead of being angry, and leaned forward. The distance between the two people quickly shortened. Shu Jin couldn't help but stiffen his back, his arms dropped, and rested on the edge of the conference table. But Fu Yunchen kept a distance and spoke in a deep voice. "I don't think I have told you my identity yet, Miss Song." The man deliberately emphasized the last three words. Then came the man's cold eyes. Shu Jin's heart trembled fiercely. She was so flustered that she forgot that she had only communicated with him as a school parent yesterday. Fu Yunchen was probably beginning to doubt herself. But she could also find a suitable reason to deal with it. Shu Jin's tightened fingertips slowly loosened, and a formal smile hung on her face. She left the man's encirclement without a trace. The senior executives of the Fu Group project team listen to the orders of one person so much, it's not difficult to guess your identity. Fu Yunchen's eyes flashed with surprise, but soon, the expression on the man's face became indifferent again. He left the conference table, walked back to Shu Jin again, and spoke word by word. "You are very smart. But I don't like to force people." Waiting for your reply. Fu Yunchen leaned over again. This time, the man tapped on Shu Jin's mobile phone screen with his fingertips, leaving only the last sentence: "You should still have my phone number in your blacklist." Shu Jin took back her mobile phone and watched Fu Yunchen leave with his mighty team. She took a deep breath and began to think about how to turn the situation around. Until the supervisor broke in again. This time the door panel even hit the wall, making a loud noise like thunder. Shu Jin almost threw the phone. "Supervisor, I'm trying to find a solution." "The solution is right in front of you. The upper team of Fu Group has already arrived at the research institute. But you can't even keep people." The supervisor was aggressive. Shu Jin frowned and held the phone tightly. "The conditions proposed by the people of Fu Group are not fair and reasonable. Ms. Song Center, our genetic engineering research institute does not revolve around you alone." The supervisor interrupted her decisively. "You have lost the cooperation of Fu Group. There is no third chance. If you can't solve the equipment problem in a short time, I will apply to the higher authorities to let the institute send you abroad on the grounds of work errors. You can decide for yourself." Leaving the final ultimatum, the supervisor left angrily, leaving only the door panel shaking gently. Shu Jin's eyes sank and she clenched the phone. She couldn't be sent abroad. Changed her appearance and worked hard from scratch. Everything she did was to return to China and slowly complete her plan. For this reason, she must keep her job at the institute so that she can stay in China reasonably. But the supervisor didn't seem to want to give her any breathing space. It was too late to find other ways. Shu Jin held her phone in her hand and pondered for a long time in the conference room alone before calming down, pulling out the only number in the blacklist and dialing it. The other party answered the phone quickly. Shu Jin spoke first. "I agree to your terms." Fu Yunchen didn't seem surprised. "It's a wise choice. I will take the new contract to your branch now." In front of the institute. Fu Yunchen interrupted her calmly. Shu Jin was stunned. The time she and her supervisor quarreled was not short. It was enough for Fu Yunchen to take the huge team away from the vicinity of the institute. How could he be? She walked quickly to the window. The SUV of the Fu Group project team parked steadily on the road in front of the institute, without any signs of leaving. At this moment, Shu Jin suddenly understood something. The supervisor was aggressive after seeing the Fu Group team. The project team that did not leave signed the contract. Everything was clearly calculated by Fu Yunchen. Shu Jin couldn't help but lean on the windowsill and clenched his fists. Fu Yunchen's voice sounded again on the other side of the phone, more like an order. They will bring you to see me. We will meet to discuss the specific matters. The phone was hung up, and the phone screen returned to darkness. Shu Jin lowered her head and sneered, Fu Yunchen, you are really good at calculating. You have calculated everything and are sure that I will agree to your conditions immediately. It is really uncomfortable to be controlled by others. However, when the equipment matter is over, she will definitely cut off contact with Fu Yunchen as quickly as possible, so as to concentrate on her plan to go into the city. Shu Jin looked up, looked at her face reflected in the glass, and muttered to herself. Mom will avenge you. The next moment, she put on a calm mask again, turned around and stepped into the bathroom to wash her face, and then took the project book and contract, left the institute in an orderly manner, and got on the car of Fu Group. The project team said nothing about this, only the driver stepped on the accelerator and drove straight to the destination. The destination is the most prosperous commercial street. There was an endless stream of pedestrians, but few people stopped in front of the French restaurant. The melodious violin playing, the magnificent interior and the French retro atmosphere almost isolated the restaurant from the outside world into two completely different worlds. Shu Jin followed the people from the Fu Group to the door and raised her eyebrows. This is not a good place to talk business. But this is Mr. Fu's request. The assistant opened the door for her, and the well-trained waiters lined up and bowed to greet her. She realized that there was only one guest in the restaurant. Fu Yunchen sat alone at the table, and red wine flowed in the high-heeled glass at his fingertips. Private affairs and official affairs are mixed together. I prefer to discuss in a private club. It's up to you. Shu Jin's heart calmed down with the violin music. Once upon a time, she also enjoyed her favorite foie gras in a French restaurant. Fu Yunchen never kept appointments. She was always alone, and only the gentle violin could soothe her anxious mood. She sat down calmly and handed over the contract. Sign it. Chapter 10 Personal Grudges, No Rush. No rush. Fu Yunchen opened his thin lips and brushed the edge of the contract with his fingertips. Besides, you need me. After speaking, he bent his fingers slightly, and the contract slid back into Shu Jin's arms. Shu Jin looked coldly, and pressed the returned contract with her slender fingers, resisting the anger in her heart. She thought that she could solve the problem as long as she came over. Unexpectedly, Fu Yunchen didn't seem to want to let her go just like that. Accompanied by her unhappy eyes, Fu Yunchen's fingertips moved slightly, and the waiters put the prepared meals on the table in an orderly manner. Mr. Fu ordered foie gras for you, and red wine from 1982. The waiter bent over to introduce. Shu Jin's favorite foie gras was lying on the plate. The red wine in the cellar of the French manor was opened, and the familiar taste stimulated her taste buds. The French silverware on the table held the glowing candlelight, and the warm light pouring down from above stained everything around with a romantic atmosphere. But Shu Jin looked at the person she had once wanted but couldn't get, and her heart was as calm as dead water. Time has passed, and she is no longer the woman waiting for Fu Yunchen to come back. She lowered her eyes, and her eyes swept across the foie gras and red wine, but she felt confused. These were her favorites in the past. Why would Fu Yunchen order these two things? Shu Jin's heart tightened, remembering that when Fu Yunchen saw Xingyu, he also blurted out her name. Could it be that he has begun to doubt his identity? No. Shu Jin quickly denied this conjecture, and the melodious violin sound reminded her with memories she used to come to eat alone, and Fu Yunchen had never accompanied her, so how could he know that this was her preference? Thinking of this, she couldn't help but laugh at herself, but in order to avoid accidents, she still pushed away the plate in front of her. I don't eat French food. A dark light flashed in Fu Yunchen's eyes. Order what you like. Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Fu. Shu Jin quickly replied with a formal smile, my food preferences are not important. What's important is all kinds of matters about meeting Miss Fu Ninian in the future. She hit Fu Yunchen's soft spot with a sharp needle. She knew that the other party wanted to make trouble for her. If she kept talking about the contract, the other party would only persevere in going around in circles. It's better to grasp the other party's shortcomings and achieve her own goals. Fu Yunchen could almost see the smile in Shu Jin's eyes, but the corners of his mouth also raised a shallow arc. Miss Song is so impatient, let's get down to business. The waiter next to him quickly took away all the dishes. On the clean and tidy table, there was a cold contract. Miss Song, I know you once took a minor in psychology. Fu Yunchen saw Shu Jin's brows furrowed, and continued, Nyan Nyan has been weak since childhood. Unlike normal children, she can't go to school frequently. She lives at home all year round, has no playmates of the same age, is withdrawn, and can even be said to be a little autistic. So, I hope you can also serve as Nyan Nyan's psychologist. Song Center in front of him is almost the only woman that Nyan Nyan has never rejected since she was a child. Nyan Nyan is too young, and she will feel nervous when facing unfamiliar environments and strangers, so Fu Yunchen did not force her to go to a psychological clinic. But it's different now. Song Center has a foundation in psychological counseling, and Nyan Nyan is more likely to receive psychological treatment from her. Even if he still feels that Song Center has the shadow of that person. And Shu Jin listened to his every word, and her heart skipped a beat. She clearly remembered that she had taken a minor in psychology and even obtained a certificate, but it was not written on any public resume. Even when she was studying at school, she studied as an auditor without a name. Even so, he was able to find out in just 2 days. Fu Yunchen even believed in her ability, and maybe he even knew her test scores, so he agreed to treat his beloved baby. Shu Jin suppressed his anger and asked word by word, "You check me?" "Yes." Fu Yunchen responded quickly. He raised his hand to signal others to bring things over, and his 2 hands with distinct joints were folded on the edge of the table. "I need everyone around Nyan Nyan to have a transparent identity. There can't be any danger around her. Even if she is very close to you at first sight, it won't work. Fu Yunchen loves his daughter." How ridiculous. A streak of blood flashed through Shu Jin's mind, and the pain of losing her daughter turned into a big hand, almost twisting her internal organs together. Fu Yunchen loves his and Shu Yin's daughter, but he wants to hunt down his daughter in secret and kill her. The next moment, the assistant put another drafted private contract in front of her. At the same time, the project contract was also delivered to Fu Yunchen. Fu Yunchen didn't notice her rising and falling breathing, and only said, "If you agree to serve as a psychologist, I will pay you a sum of money in addition to the equipment." When it came to the equipment, Shu Jin suddenly came back to her senses. She came for the overall situation. As for personal grudges, there was no rush. She would always get them back from the other party bit by bit. Shu Jin lowered her eyes, calmed her mind, and signed her name on the private contract. "Okay." After speaking, she handed the signed contract back. Fu Yunchen also signed the equipment contract. The 2 parties exchanged contracts and signed them again. 2 copies of the contract were delivered to the 2 people respectively. Shu Jin immediately collected the contract, stood up, and walked out. "The equipment issue is very urgent. I hope Mr. Fu will deal with it as soon as possible." Without waiting for Fu Yunchen's answer, Shu Jin had already pushed the door and left. At the same time, Shu Jin sent the contract back to the institute and turned back home. Jiang Xingyu, who had left school early, rushed over in his little tiger slippers when he heard the door open. He saw Shu Jin frowning and running back to his room. Shu Jin was stunned and touched her face. Oh no, she came back too early today and didn't have time to adjust her mood. Maybe her son saw her again. She was about to explain when she saw Jiang Xingyu running over with a laptop. "Mommy, this is the website I practiced cracking today." "Really?" Shu Jin's eyes lit up. Just as she sat on the sofa with her son in her arms, she saw the burly man on the website hook the ball upside down. The ball flew away, but the man was hanging on the tree. Both mother and son couldn't help laughing, and Shu Jin's depressed mood just now was swept away. She lowered her head, kissed the top of her son's head, and said with relief, "Xingyu is getting more and more powerful. Of course, when I grow up, I will protect mommy." Jiang Xingyu patted his chest. Shu Jin was very relieved, but thinking of the deal with Fu Yunchen today, she still gave her son a shot of prevention in advance. "Xingyu, do you like the sister you met before?" Chapter 11. Can I be slept with? Jiang Xingyu was puzzled, so he moved to the other side of the sofa, hugged the pillow, and decided to listen to mommy's explanation of the cause and effect of the matter. Shu Jin looked at the faint doubts in her son's eyes, but she didn't feel disgusted, and she was relieved a little. Although she has been with her son all the time. But Jiang Xingyu is also a little different from other children. He matured early and always knew more than others. But this does not mean that he can accept his own mommy and will accompany other people's children in the future. After thinking about it, Shu Jin decided to have a good discussion with her son. For some reasons, I promised Nyan Nyan's father that I might have to meet Nyan Nyan more often in the future to help her with some simple psychological treatment. Jiang Xingyu only asked, when mommy goes to see Nyan Nyan, will you take me with you? Of course, do I have to leave my baby alone and only care about other people's children? Shu Jin smiled and came forward, lying on the sofa, holding her son in her arms. The mother and son huddled in the small sofa, giggling. Jiang Xingyu hugged Shu Jin's arm and smiled, mommy is the best. So, do you agree that mommy will take you to see Nyan Nyan more often in the future? Agree. Jiang Xingyu thought of the sister he met yesterday, and his heart couldn't stop being happy. Besides, I like my sister very much. She is a small ball, very cute. Sister. These two words made Shu Jin dazed for a moment. Damn, why does she always compare her with her deceased daughter when she thinks of Nyan Nyan? This can't be done. Their grudges in this life should not be related to the child. The child is innocent. Shu Jin could only emphasize this point in her heart over and over again. Shu Jin's momentary distraction was seen by the thoughtful Jiang Xingyu. He slowly retracted his excited limbs and carefully hugged Shu Jin's neck. Does mommy dislike your sister? Hearing the child's careful inquiry, Shu Jin suddenly came back to her senses and couldn't help hugging Jiang Xingyu tighter. She wanted to tell her son that she liked Fu Yunchen very much. But when the words came to her lips, she couldn't say it. Fu Yunchen doted on Fu Yunchen, but killed her daughter. How could she like Fu Yunchen without scruples? After a long time, Shu Jin could only rub her son's soft hair fiercely, as long as Xingyu likes it. After all, what you like, mommy also likes. Jiang Xingyu smiled and threw himself into mommy's arms to play. Their mother and son quarreled for a long time before Shu Jin went to make a hamburger for her son and coaxed him to go out for a walk with her in the evening to digest the food. She was happier than usual. But when she got home, she locked herself in the room. The bloody scene that had been flashing in her mind today began to pull her tense nerves again. She thought of her daughter who died in infancy. She remembered the desperate scene of her hands covered in blood but unable to do anything. Unforgettable. She threw herself heavily into the mattress, hoping that dreams could take away the dark memories, but those bloody memories were like maggots on the tassel bones, lingering in her mind all night. Until the morning light was faint in the sky, she fell into a light sleep exhausted. When the alarm clock rang, she regained her usual spirit and completely put the memories of the night behind her. Shu Jin first sent her son to kindergarten and kissed his forehead in front of the door. Remember to play with other kids today, and hack websites in moderation, understand? Got it. Jiang Xingyu nodded, and touched the side of Shu Jin's face, and then reluctantly walked into the kindergarten. Shu Jin brushed the kiss on her cheek, feeling that the haze of yesterday had mostly disappeared, and she went to the research institute refreshed. Just walked into the research institute. The supervisor, who was still cold and sarcastic yesterday, suddenly put on a big smile, strode to Shu Jin, and patted her shoulder. You are really a rising star in our research institute. In a short time yesterday, Fu Group approved the equipment, and it can be delivered to our laboratory today. Where is the person who pointed at her nose and scolded her yesterday? The supervisor really knows how to change his face. Shu Jin laughed dryly and said casually, the matter was already finalized, but the other party's senior management had a little disagreement. It's not a big achievement. You are just belittling yourself. The supervisor patted her shoulder vigorously, and his voice was so loud that almost the whole floor could hear his praise. That's the famous Fu Group. If this order is really lost, even if we beg them at their door, the group's top management may not even look at us. But you not only negotiated the business, but also asked the other party to quickly dispatch equipment to the laboratory. You are an indispensable contributor to our institute. Thank you for the compliment. Shu Jin left the clutches of the supervisor without a trace. Her shoulders were almost broken by the pat. The supervisor was in a bad mood and praised her several times before leaving reluctantly. The eyes of several colleagues around her were unkind, and they whispered, she is just a newcomer, why are you so proud? Shu Jin rubbed her shoulders and turned a deaf ear to these murmurs. There will always be gossip wherever you go. She returned to her workstation and started working. She found that the data of several projects were missing, so she had to ask in the work group. Excuse me, where can I find the complete data of these two reports? No one responded. Shu Jin didn't take it seriously. Half an hour later, during the lunch break, someone asked what to eat for lunch, and people in the work group suddenly started discussing enthusiastically. Shu Jin looked up and saw colleagues leaving in twos and threes, pointing fingers at her from time to time, and suddenly understood the meaning of it. It seems that she was excluded. Shu Jin didn't bother to care about it. She went to the cafeteria to get food and came back to eat. Just as she walked to the door, before she opened it, she heard the discussion of colleagues inside. I saw it with my own eyes. She got into the car of the senior executives of Fu Group. I saw it too. She was alone in the meeting room with President Fu before. Who knows what they were talking about, or what they were taking off? Sleep and the order is done. How shameless. Everyone laughed. Bang. The door was suddenly pushed open, and several people looked in. Shu Jin walked in slowly in high heels, smiling, but her eyes were cold. The experimental data is missing, but you don't know how to use your brain to fill it in. When the project approval failed, you used the yellow waste in your brain to fill it in. Several people were exposed and suddenly insulted like this, and they retorted unhappily, who said that their brains are full of waste. You slept with someone and you are shameless, and you also dirty our laboratory equipment. Really? Shu Jin smiled and brushed past her, but put the project book of Fu Group into her arms. Then you also go to sleep with someone, and see if the people of Fu Group will buy it. Chapter 12. The woman in front of him was as cold as ice. The colleague was shocked. That was the Fu Group. Don't even mention that she wanted to win over the upper echelons, she couldn't even see them. She held the project book in her hand like a hot potato. What does it have to do with me? Isn't this your job? Shu Jin leaned forward and pressed on. Don't you think this contract is dirty? Don't you think that the people in the upper echelons of the Fu Group can negotiate orders worth tens of millions or hundreds of millions by sleeping with them? I have already signed this order, and only the follow-up negotiations are left. If you can do it, you can sleep with the upper echelons of the Fu Group, and even your lifelong affairs can be solved at the same time. I won't compete with you for such a good thing. After saying that, she patted the plan book in her hand again and walked back to her workstation calmly. The colleague was blushing. They usually say bad things about people secretly, and have never heard of anyone saying such shameless lines in public. Isn't this humiliating? The next moment, Shu Jin dialed the phone and handed it to his colleague. I still have the contact information of the senior executives of Fu Group. Why don't you ask him if the people of Fu Group can be slept with? Ding. The sound of waiting came. When the colleague looked up, he saw the words, Mr. Fu, clearly written on it, as if he was struck by a bolt from the blue. I was wrong. The colleague hurriedly turned off the phone screen and was shocked. I didn't expect that she would dare to call and ask. And it was the famous Mr. Fu. If Mr. Fu knew what they said about this matter in secret, she would not be able to stay in Yunchen. The colleague's legs softened and he almost knelt down to Shu Jin. I was wrong. I shouldn't talk about you behind your back. The colleagues around him all lowered their heads and did not dare to act rashly. Shu Jin calmly put away her phone. TSK, she was planning to let these gossipy colleagues annoy Fu Yunchen. Unexpectedly, these colleagues were aggressive in secret, but they were all paper tigers in public. She had to smile and look at her colleagues. It is a great virtue to admit mistakes and correct them. We will still be good colleagues in the future, right? Yes, yes, yes. Several colleagues nodded like crazy, not daring to say anything more, and returned to their seats to sit down and start working. The next moment, Shu Jin's phone vibrated. She picked up the phone, looked at the words, Mr. Fu, written on it, raised her eyebrows and answered the call. Mr. Fu, is there something? You called me first. Fu Yunchen reminded coldly, and he could vaguely hear the voice of a low report from the other side. Shu Jin perfunctorily said, my hand slipped. I'll hang up if nothing happens. Fu Yunchen said, tonight, the movie Nyan Nyan Likes, Dog Mobilization, will premiere. The address and time have been sent to your phone. After that, the other party hung up the phone directly. She was quite fast at getting on the job. Shu Jin checked the time and place on her phone. She just had time to pick up Jiang Xingyu before going to the cinema. Afternoon. She showed up in front of the cinema on time with Jiang Xingyu. Jiang Xingyu looked at the empty hall. Mommy, this place should be closed. Did we go the wrong way? Shu Jin frowned. The service staff came forward from the side. Excuse me, are you Miss Song? Yes. Today, the cinema has been booked by Mr. Fu. Please go this way. The service staff led the way for them. Shu Jin's mouth twitched. No wonder Nyan Nyan was withdrawn. She came to the cinema to watch the premiere and was booked directly. She had no communication with other children. As soon as she walked into the screening room with her son, a small figure jumped into her arms in the darkness. Shu Jin subconsciously hugged the person tightly, and the hair on her shoulders was gently pinched. At this moment, her entanglement last night disappeared instantly. She just felt that this child was indeed cute. Look at the dogs. It's dog story. Jiang Xingyu's voice was slightly higher, staring at the big screen in front of him. Shu Jin had no choice. The child might have a natural love for animals. She held the child in one hand and walked forward with the other hand. When she found the most suitable seat and sat down, she found out. Fu Yunchen had been waiting for a long time. She sat down with the child in her arms and laughed. I didn't expect that President Fu would also watch cartoons with the child. Fu Yunchen didn't respond, but just rubbed Nyan Nyan's head in her arms. Nyan Nyan rubbed Fu Yunchen's palm, but stayed in Shu Jin's arms and refused to leave. Shu Jin had no choice but to hold the child. The cartoon started playing, and the two children watched it with great interest. When they saw the dog jump down, Nyan Nyan's eyes widened. Fly up. When the dog was in danger and injured, Jiang Xingyu would block Nyan Nyan's eyes in time. Sister, you can't watch. Nyan Nyan was annoyed when she was blocked, but nodded seriously, no. The two children were happy, and Shu Jin was naturally happy too. She often watched some cartoons with her son. When she was absorbed in watching, she found that Fu Yunchen's eyes swept over from time to time. Shu Jin moved closer and spoke in a voice that only the two adults could hear. Mr. Fu, you always look at me from time to time. Are you afraid that I, who needs to be investigated, will do something to Nyan Nyan under your nose? In the dark, Shu Jin was very close. The breath with a light perfume smell also fell on Fu Yunchen's face. Fu Yunchen didn't find it annoying. Miss Song is too sentimental. Shu Jin raised his eyebrows. Maybe, but I am always sensitive to other people's malicious eyes. Fu Yunchen responded, I was looking at Nyan Nyan. Who would believe it? Fu Nyan Nyan was so small in his arms that Fu Yunchen didn't need to look up at her. He looked up frequently and glanced at her. Wasn't he looking at himself? Shu Jin stopped arguing with him. Otherwise I will send Nyan Nyan back to your arms, so you can also look at your daughter well without watching cartoons. Shu Jin was really ready to do so. But Fu Yunchen gently pressed her wrist with the back of his hand, accompanied by a warning. Keep it as it is. Shu Jin felt the weight on her wrist, and pulled her hand away uncomfortably, and stopped looking at him. Fu Yunchen looked at her calm appearance again, as if overlapping with the figure of Shu Jin in his mind. The only difference is, Shu Jin is always active and enthusiastic in front of him. The woman in front of him was as cold as ice. When the movie was over, the two children were still talking in low voices. Shu Jin didn't get a word in for a long time. Fu Yunchen coughed lightly. Nian Nian, what do you want for dinner? Fu Nian Nian stopped thinking. Jiang Xingyu also stopped talking and looked at Shu Jin hesitantly. Shu Jin also walked over and gently pinched Jiang Xingyu's little face. Let's go home to eat today. Let's go together. Fu Yunchen interrupted her and looked at Jiang Xingyu deeply. The children haven't finished talking yet. Did Fu Yunchen want to take all her private time? Shu Jin shook her head. I am Nian Nian's psychological counselor now, and the planning power should be in my hands. I think moderate activities are more beneficial to children, so today's activities end here, and Xingyu and I should go home and rest. Chapter 13. Take good care of your own dog. After their voice fell, Shu Jin was ready to take Jiang Xingyu away. Don't go. The tender voice caught up with her steps. Fu Niannian's soft hands wrapped around her fingers. Her big and round eyes seemed to be filled with a clear pond, and she continued to speak stutteringly. I'm not angry. Shu Jin paused. Jiang Xingyu clenched Shu Jin's hand, and looked at Fu Niannian hesitantly. He seemed to like this sister very much. Shu Jin lowered her head and saw Fu Niannian pouting. Together. Such a cute child, it's hard to refuse to break the rules. Shu Jin's eyebrows relaxed slightly, and Fu Yunchen followed, without forcing or retaining. But she still put it in Fu Niannian's watery eyes. Shu Jin compromised. Okay, together. Okay. Fu Niannian smiled, holding Shu Jin's hand and not letting go, and reached out to grab Fu Yunchen's hand. Shu Jin saw Niannian's actions, and her heart trembled. This is a bit too much. Doesn't it look like the four of them holding hands look like a family? Just as she was about to remind Fu Yunchen to pay attention to the distance, an inappropriate female voice pierced the silence, accompanied by the sound of a shopping bag falling to the ground. Brother Yunchen, why are you with Nyan Nyan with other women? Shu Yin looked at the scene in disbelief. Two adults and two children, holding hands intimately, walked out of the cinema. It was like a family of four going out for fun. But Fu Yunchen was clearly her fiancé. How could he be with other women? Shu Yin was furious, stepping on high heels, walking quickly towards Fu Yunchen. The sound of high heels landing was sharp and piercing. Fu Nyan's hand that was about to pull her father shrank, and she just covered her ears and buried herself in Shu Jin's arms. Jiang Xingyu quickly covered his sister's other ear. Fu Yunchen saw the child's actions, frowned, but saw Shu Yin had come to him, biting her lips lightly, tears rolling. Brother Yunchen, don't you want me anymore? Shu Jin got goosebumps instantly when she heard the delicate voice. Fu Yunchen said coldly, Nyan Nyan came to watch the premiere of the cartoon today. I can also come with Nyan Nyan. Shu Yin came forward with a face full of grievance, but glanced at Fu Nianyan with a trace of hatred in her eyes. So it was because Fu Nianyan was close to this woman that Fu Yunchen brought Nyan Nyan to date this woman. This child, he really doesn't kiss her. Should I say, it's really worthy of being the child of Shu Jin's bastard. She was furious, but she still looked pitiful. Brother Yunchen, I am your fiancé. Could it be that you fell in love with a woman of unknown origin just because of Nyan Nyan? This woman, maybe she came here to poach people by using Nyan Nyan. Hearing this, Fu Yunchen frowned and reached out to cover Fu Nianyan's ears again, comforting his frightened daughter. Nianyan, you can't stand these dirty words. I'll pay attention next time, but Brother Yunchen, I care about you too. I know women too well, she must be doing this for your power. Sorry, interrupt. Shu Jin took a step forward and met Shu Yin's unwilling eyes. I'm Fu Nianyan's psychologist, not the kind of woman you're talking about. After saying this, she finally took Jiang Xingyu's hand, brushed past Shu Yin, and left a word in her ear. Also, don't think your brother is a hot commodity. Is it a woman who would rush to get him? I don't want him at all. Shu Yin's eyes were slightly cold. She stamped her feet and turned around, staring at Shu Jin's back. You actually. This mall is so noisy, even barking dogs are allowed in. Mr. Fu must take care of his own dogs. Shu Jin left with his son. Shu Yin was so angry that she trembled all over. Shu Jin took 2 steps and suddenly remembered what dirty words she had said in front of Nyan Nyan just now, and she felt guilty. She still stopped, turned around and made a heart shape to Nyan Nyan, and exaggeratedly lip-synced, Nyan Nyan, see you next time. Jiang Xingyu also waved and smiled at his sister. Although Fu Nianyan couldn't hear, she blushed quietly when she saw Shu Jin's heart shape, and waved her hand. Fu Yunchen saw it, and a faint joy climbed into his eyes. It was the first time that Nyan Nyan took the initiative to respond to someone's farewell. At home, even if it was the closest nanny and housekeeper, Nyan Nyan would only nod slightly, and had never been so proactive and enthusiastic. It seems that this song center is very pleasing to Nyan Nyan. Fu Yunchen's eyes also followed Shu Jin's back. Brother Yunchen, look at her, she actually called me a dog. If such a woman is placed next to Nyan Nyan, what if Nyan Nyan learns bad things? Tears flashed in Shu Yin's eyes, and she tugged at Fu Yunchen's sleeve pitifully. But Fu Yunchen's eyes kept watching Shu Jin's figure disappear completely at the elevator entrance. Why? Why does Brother Yunchen care so much about this woman? Is it because she is the woman Fu Nyan Nyan likes? Shu Yin was unwilling, and her cold eyes also fell on Fu Nyan Nyan. Fu Nianyan only glanced at Shu Yin's eyes, and her small body trembled slightly, and slowly moved behind Fu Yunchen, not daring to look at Shu Yin again. Nianyan. Fu Yunchen suddenly came back to his senses and hugged his daughter who moved behind him. Fu Nianyan only glanced at Shu Yin secretly, and suddenly buried her whole body in Fu Yunchen's neck as if she was afraid, without saying a word, and never raised her head. The man's cold eyes instantly swept towards Shu Yin. Shu Yin panicked. Brother Yunchen, look, Nyan Nyan must have been frightened by the woman just now, so pitiful. Noisy. Fu Yunchen opened his thin lips slightly, and his strong arms gently supported his little daughter at this time, and his other hand gently patted his daughter's back, only his eyes were cold. In the future, don't talk nonsense in front of Nyan Nyan. Shu Yin's back was cold when she was looked at, but she still gritted her teeth, but obviously she also The rest of the words were crushed by Fu Yunchen's sudden steps. Seeing the man was about to leave, Shu Yin hurried forward. Brother Yunchen, I know I was wrong, I will definitely, next time. It's hard to change a person's character. Fu Yunchen walked out slowly with his daughter in his arms. Without looking back, you took the initiative to provoke me today, I will reconsider whether you are suitable to be Nyan Nyan's mother. Brother Yunchen, It's late, go home early. Fu Yunchen's voice was no longer warm, he held Fu Nyan Nyan in his arms and got into the car, his heart and eyes filled with only his daughter. Shu Yin rushed to the side of the road and saw only a string of car exhaust. She stood alone on the side of the road, clenching her fists angrily. That woman, what tricks did she use to make Brother Yunchen defend her so much? Chapter 14, Stop Being Labeled. Achoo! Shu Jin sneezed suddenly. Jiang Xingyu, who had already changed into pajamas, snapped his fingers. Mommy, do you want me to order some cold medicine for you? Shu Jin shook his head. His throat didn't hurt and his eyes didn't feel sore. It must be someone stabbing him in the back. She leaned over and touched her son's cheek, smiling slightly. I don't think so. Maybe someone is just saying bad things about mommy behind her back. After he finished speaking, the tablet on the table vibrated. Shu Jin only took a look at the name, frowned slightly, and unnoticeably took the tablet away from her son's sight. Jiang Xingyu pretended not to see it, but his ears moved along with Shu Jin's movements, and he heard the sound of Shu Jin pulling out the chair in the restaurant. There was only a thin panel separating the dining room and the living room, so conversations on both sides could be heard clearly. Shu Jin placed the tablet in place and pressed the button to answer the call. A handsome man suddenly appeared on the screen. The man had a gentle temperament, wearing rimless glasses on his nose, his hands folded on his knees, and his eyes gently looked at Shu Jin on the other side of the screen. I heard that there was a problem with the equipment you were responsible for at the research institute. Shu Jin smiled lightly. There were some problems before, but now it has been resolved. The man's expression changed slightly, and he moved closer to the screen, seemingly in an intimate manner, but there was a hint of impatience in his eyes. It seems that I found out too late. His smiling face was so close that Shu Jin felt a tightness in her chest. But thinking that Jiang Yubai has always been like this, she got used to it. I just solved this matter not long ago, plus the time difference, it's difficult for you to know it in the first place. Is that so? Jiang Yubai then slightly left the screen, with a softer smile on his face, but, if you have any problems at work in the future, you can always come to me. Even if I'm sleeping, I'll get up and solve your problems. Yeah. Shu Jin replied indifferently, noticing that the noise in the living room suddenly stopped. She was just about to ask her son if he was ready to take a bath. Jiang Yubai's eyes fell on her shoulder and he asked as a matter of course. Why is your hair short? Shu Jin came back to his senses. She thought back to when she returned to China. She had to work in a research institute after all. Waist-length hair does look good, but shoulder-length hair is more convenient for her to enter and exit various laboratories. She explained, too long hair is not conducive to experiments. Let's talk later. I'm going to see Xingyu. Before Shu Jin had time to stand up, the man on the screen tapped the table with his fingers, making a sound. She stopped subconsciously. Jiang Yubai said, but your waist-length hair suited you better before, especially when you wore a fishtail skirt before, everyone's attention was attracted to you. Shu Jin frowned. Rather than a trivial matter like their hair, what was more strange was why my son suddenly became silent. Wait, let me go check out the stars first. Mommy can have any hairstyle she likes, why does Uncle Jiang have to keep an eye on such a small matter? Jiang Xingyu walked in from the door holding a closed notebook. As he spoke, he walked obediently to Shu Jin's side, put down his notebook, opened his arms and hugged Shu Jin, his big, innocent eyes looking straight at Jiang Yubai on the screen. A crack flashed across Jiang Yubai's gentle face, and his fingertips tapped the table nervously. After a long moment, he deepened the smile on his face. I just think that your mom has found a suitable hairstyle. There is no need for her to give up her beauty for work. I also think this kind of mommy is very beautiful. When Uncle Jiang took mommy to an art exhibition before, didn't he also mention that beauty is not limited to a single form? Jiang Xingyu spoke very innocently, but his two hands tightly hugged Shu Jin, more like a kind of protection. Jiang Yubai saw it, and there was a slight crack on his flawless smile. There was a moment of silence. Shu Jin hugged her son helplessly, and her heart sank when she saw Jiang Yubai's ugly expression. Every time these two people meet, there is always some discord. Jiang Yubai had helped him, and Xingyu was his own son. She didn't want to cause an argument between the two of them for the time being, so she spoke immediately. Yubai, let's end today's video call here. Xingyu will go to kindergarten in a few days. We are adjusting our schedule and it's time to go to bed. Let's talk next time. Shu Jin's voice was gentle, accurately soothing Jiang Yubai's slightly restless heart. Jiang Yubai smiled gently. Well, good night. Good night. Shu Jin finished speaking patiently and then closed the video call. She picked up the depressed Jiang Xingyu, walked to the living room, snuggled into the carpet on the small sofa with him, and gently pinched his face. Why do you always get into trouble with your uncle Jiang? Jiang Xingyu pursed his lips. I didn't. Shu Jin laughed, thinking that maybe children all have their own little tempers, and said patiently. Xingyu said no, then so be it. But, your uncle Jiang has helped us, you still have to respect him. The corners of Jiang Xingyu's mouth sank a few degrees again. But he doesn't respect you. He respects me very much. Shu Jin tried to talk to her son. But her son threw himself into her arms, his face flushed with anxiety, and told her seriously. If he really respects you, he should respect all your preferences. It's not like in foreign countries, where you are given clear requirements on everything from what brand of cosmetics to use to your dressing style and way of speaking, like a label. That's not respect. At least, that's not the kind of respect I know. Jiang Xingyu's voice became louder and louder, and his eyes became redder and redder. As if he was feeling sorry for Shu Jin. His aggrieved mood seemed to infect Shu Jin, making her nose slightly sour. I know, next time I will choose the ones I like, and also choose the ones Xingyu likes. Jiang Xingyu was still dissatisfied. Mommy always lets me pick what I like and what suits me. This is how mommy respects me. Mommy, you have to live like me, and stop being labeled. Mommy knows what's going on. Shu Jin smiled sweetly and kissed her son's face. My Xingyu is the best, but it's really late now. Go take a shower and get ready for bed. Jiang Xingyu saw her smiling with relief, then he climbed down from the sofa to wash up. When the bathroom door was closed, the sound of water was heard. Shu Jin concealed the smile in her eyes, but her mind was still circling with what her son had just said. She looked towards her room and saw a lot of things in her closet that Jiang Yubai had picked for her. Once, Jiang Yubai allowed her to change her appearance and re-enter society as his wife to build her own network and a new life. She was extremely grateful for this and respected him very much. But today I heard what my son said. There was also the small change in the length of her hair that she made on a whim, which led to Jiang Yubai's deliberate praise today, and she felt slightly moved. Shu Jin murmured to herself, it seems that something is wrong. But where lies the problem? Chapter 15. If your fiancé knew about this, wouldn't she be furious? Institute of Genetic Engineering. Ever since the equipment approved by the Fu Group arrived at the institute, the efficiency of research projects in several laboratories has improved. Within just a few days, with the full cooperation of new equipment and new colleagues, the project achieved a phased breakthrough. The supervisor was so happy that he couldn't stop smiling. Shu Jin, I didn't expect you to be such a rare genius. You found a breakthrough in such a short time. The vice president specifically asked to hear your report on the results. When Shu Jin heard this, he just nodded and drank another cup of coffee, with a faint dark spot under his eyes. New. The supervisor was worried. You really work hard for the institute's projects. I will definitely say a few good words to their vice president and ask them to give you more favorable treatment. Shu Jin rubbed his forehead, which was hurt by the noise, and forced a smile. Thank you, boss. I still have work to do. Afternoon. Shu Jin briefly reported the project results to their vice president and others, and at the end, there was thunderous applause. The vice president stood up first and said, yes, with the breakthrough of this research project, I think more people will invest in our institute. Song Center, the institute thanks you for your efforts. This is what I should do. Shu Jin let out a long sigh, but his eyes were a little vague due to fatigue. The supervisor quickly took the opportunity to interrupt. Deputy Dean, Song Center has devoted too much to the project and is almost exhausted. The vice president was nervous. It seems that you are really too tired. You should take a few days off. The research project will take some time to transition. I heard the word rest. A faint light flashed in Shu Jin's eyes. She quickly agreed and rushed back home at lightning speed. Jiang Xingyu, who was supposed to go to school, popped his head out from behind the sofa and smiled sweetly at her. "Mommy, you came back so early today. I've been busy for several days, so I'm taking these 2 days off." Shu Jin put on slippers and walked in. Looking at the desk full of kindergarten materials, her head began to ache again. She was indeed extremely tired these days. But it was not a high-intensity project research, but a choice of kindergarten for my son. Jiang Xingyu is very intelligent at a young age, and because he is a little precocious, he prefers dealing with electronic devices. The kindergarten he attended before soon sent him a feedback letter. There are not enough teachers to teach Jiang Xingyu. Also, he previously hacked into the school computer, causing other parents to worry about information leakage. Parents are asked to find another prestigious school for their children. Shu Jin read out every word in the feedback letter. Jiang Xingyu behind him just waved his little hand and printed out the remaining kindergarten information while speaking. There was a teacher in the school who often beat and scolded the children in the next class, so I retrieved the information and asked the police to come and investigate. Well, you're a good person. Shu Jin put the feedback letter aside and looked through the kindergarten information that her son had just found. But next time, before you do something like this, discuss it with mommy so that mommy can be mentally prepared. Good. Jiang Xingyu nodded, but looked at the dark circles under mommy's eyes with some heartache. He moved closer uncomfortably and threw himself into her arms. "Mommy, don't worry about finding a kindergarten for me. I can collect data and find a good tutor and ask him to come to my house to teach me." Shu Jin paused, then looked at the son in her arms with her eyes slightly narrowed. "You don't want to go to kindergarten. Kindergarten is just a channel to learn. As long as I can get the channel, I can go to school or study at home." Jiang Xingyu smiled brightly. But Shu Jin stared at that little face. Sometimes, she didn't want Jiang Xingyu to be so precocious, but to be a real child. But his son does seem to be a genius. Shu Jin was helpless and could only rub Jiang Xingyu's head hard and said seriously, "I'm not afraid that you, a little genius, won't be able to learn. Mommy just hopes that you can have friends of the same age, friends who can go out to the movies and eat snacks with you from time to time, instead of just being alone with mommy." Jiang Xingyu covered his messy hair and whispered, "In fact, only mommy also can't." Shu Jin shook her finger and took out a list from the pile of enrollment rosters. "Friends of the same age are irreplaceable to mommy. Let's go to this kindergarten tomorrow to have a look." Jiang Xingyu pursed his lips and looked at the expectation in Shu Jin's eyes, but still did not argue. If this is what mommy wants, he can try. The next day, early in the morning, Shu Jin had a rare good sleep and felt refreshed. She wore a Chanel-style jacket with an A-line skirt, looking mature yet playful, and brought Jiang Xingyu to the door of Ansel Kindergarten. Ansel Kindergarten is a famous kindergarten in the city center. Bilingual courses, early education, and 1-on-2 intensive teaching methods, combined with the free breaks commonly used in normal kindergartens, can ensure that children's education meets the standards without cutting off their normal social interactions. This is also the reason why Shu Jin chose this kindergarten. She walked to the door and said, "Hello, I saw your school's enrollment list and would like to inquire about it." The guard asked directly, "Do you have a letter of introduction?" Letter of introduction. Shu Jin took off his sunglasses and smiled. "I thought the enrollment guide only mentioned the age of admission." "Of appropriate age." The guard looked her up and down. "The Ansel Kindergarten is full of young men and women from the upper class. People like you, without background and letters of introduction, will never be seen by the principal. Go away and stop being an eyesore at the door." Shu Jin raised her eyebrows. "Are even kindergartens so snobbish now?" When Jiang Xingyu heard this, he pulled Shu Jin out. "Mommy, these kindergartens are not big, but the principals are so arrogant. It's better not to go to such places." Shu Jin was a little embarrassed. It seemed difficult to find a kindergarten better than Ansel in the city center. "Elder brother." A familiar and childish voice came. Shu Jin turned around and saw a figure rushing towards her like a small cannonball towards Jiang Xingyu. Jiang Xingyu almost stumbled, but after seeing Fu Yunchen's smiling face, he immediately steadied himself and supported his sister. "Sister, be careful. Hey hey. If Fu Yunchen were here. What a coincidence." Fu Yunchen got out of the Bentley, wearing a three-piece suit made in Italy, which made him look particularly formal. However, it would be fine if Nyan Nyan came over, but why did this man come forward to say hello for no reason? It seems like they are very familiar with each other. Unfortunately, Shu Jin retracted her gaze. Seeing that the two children had already started talking, she glanced sideways. Boss Fu just left the banquet. Why didn't he bring his female companion with him? No need. Fu Yunchen straightened his slightly wrinkled cuffs. Of course it's necessary. Shu Jin sneered, and because of the children around him, he deliberately lowered his voice. In the kindergarten, women are the ones picking up the children. If they knew you came here alone and were surrounded by women, they would be very surprised. If your barking fiancé knew about this, wouldn't she be furious? Chapter 16. Everyone follows your instructions. Are you concerned about my fiancé? Fu Yunchen looked at Shu Jin with interest. Of course, I don't want to be suddenly bitten by a stray dog on the roadside. Shu Jin lowered her eyes and saw Fu Yunchen's assistant walking towards the kindergarten. She raised her eyebrows slightly and said, Mr. Fu is here today. In the previous kindergarten, there were cases where teachers violated their professional ethics and used violence to educate children. This was not good for Nyan Nyan's safety. Fu Yunchen's eyes fell on Jiang Xingyu. I heard that this matter was reported by a boy in the kindergarten, and he was asked to leave the kindergarten because of this. Hearing this, Jiang Xingyu quietly looked up at Shu Jin. Shu Jin was helpless. Although his son did a good thing and helped the parents to screen the pros and cons of kindergartens, he did not expect that he would get entangled with Fu Yunchen in private again. She was just about to take Jiang Xingyu away without saying a word, but she heard Fu Yunchen speak. The principal of Ansel Kindergarten is picky, but if I have a letter of introduction, they probably won't mind taking in one more child. Fu Yunchen's voice sounded from behind. Shu Jin stopped, and according to the teacher education of various kindergartens, Ansel is currently her first choice. In the face of her son's future education, she didn't mind putting aside her personal grudge with Fu Yunchen for the time being. But being nice to others without any reason is probably not the business style of a businessman. Mr. Fu, what are the conditions for the letter of introduction? She turned around holding Jiang Xingyu's hand with a smile on her face. Fu Yunchen's eyes swept over the two children. Let the two children study in the same class. Shu Jin was puzzled and a little hesitant. If possible, she still hopes that her children can keep a distance from Shu Yin's children. But the conditions proposed by Fu Yunchen were tantamount to bringing the two families closer together. It really gave her a headache. Nyan Nyan rarely has playmates of the same age, and coupled with the new kindergarten environment, I am very worried. Fu Yunchen noticed her clenched fingertips and explained at the right time, but Nyan Nyan likes your son very much. Besides, there are many peers in this world who exclude geniuses. I heard that the little boy who was expelled from the kindergarten before also has few friends. Shu Jin was silent. She looked at Jiang Xingyu helplessly, but her son shrugged indifferently, but his eyes glanced at Fu Niannian from time to time with some hidden expectation. Geniuses always have the fate of being excluded. I accept that. I don't accept it. Shu Jin saw it and rubbed his son's face fiercely. Don't think I don't know your little thoughts. The little dolls at home are piling up like a mountain. Jiang Xingyu rubbed his slightly red face and looked down at his shoes uncomfortably. Shu Jin felt even more distressed. Since her son was born, he has been traveling with her, studying and doing research. He has never stayed in one place and has few neighbors and friends around him. When he was a little older, while other children were still having fun, he was already familiar with electronic devices and had even fewer friends of the same age. But children, who doesn't he like lively and happy times? So she often bought gifts for her son, ranging from the latest equipment to hanging toys, but what her son liked most late at night was to fall asleep hugging his doll. This time, maybe it's an opportunity. She squatted down and looked at her son at eye level. Do you want to be in the same class with Nyan Nyan? Jiang Xingyu looked at Fu Niannian hesitantly, but then he saw the tall and cold Fu Yunchen. Thinking of the interaction between the two adults just now, he remained silent. Mommy wants to hear Xingyu's true thoughts. Didn't you say last time that you hoped I would learn from you and pick what I like? Why aren't you being honest? Then mommy won't follow your example in the future. As Shu Jin spoke, she turned her face away childishly and pretended to be angry in front of her son. Fu Yunchen took in her little movements and expressions, his gaze deepening. This icy woman actually has a childish side. Moreover, she is very patient with children. Seeing Shu Jin throwing a tantrum, Jiang Xingyu reluctantly went forward and hugged her neck, whispering, "I like going to school with Nyan Nyan." After getting the answer, Shu Jin hugged his son tightly with satisfaction, patted his back, and then let him go. Okay. Fu Yunchen heard Jiang Xingyu's words and happily jumped over and held Jiang Xingyu's hand. Together. Yeah, let's go to school together. Jiang Xingyu also held Fu Yunchen's hand tightly, and the two children soon burst into laughter. At this time, Fu Yunchen also followed Fu Yunchen and came in front of Shu Jin. It's rare to see Nyan Nyan so happy. Xingyu doesn't reject it either, so I agree to your proposal just now. Shu Jin distanced herself from him without leaving a trace and walked towards the kindergarten again. Thank you, Mr. Fu. I have other things to do later. Let's just get this done today. What a domineering woman. No need to ask him if he has time today. But Fu Yunchen surprisingly didn't hate it, instead he remembered it. There once was a woman who was always enthusiastic towards him and created many unexpected surprises for him. Even so, he had once rejected all of these. Fu Yunchen's eyes dimmed as he looked at Song Center's back and recalled Shu Jin again. After a long while, he retracted his gaze and asked Shu Jin, "You are always so casual and don't ask about other people's arrangements." Shu Jin sent the two children to kindergarten and paused slightly. She rarely acted casually before. After all, the people I once liked always tend to reject my kindness. She had to guess his preferences in various ways, and change herself according to Fu Yunchen's preferences, and she almost lost herself. But in the end, it was all just unrewarded wishful thinking. But now, I'm always casual, and Mr. Fu has a big mouth. If you are dissatisfied with my arrangement, you can speak directly. You can't expect everyone to do things according to your instructions. After saying that, she walked straight into the kindergarten. Fu Yunchen suppressed the emotions that were floating in his eyes. The woman who used to obey him in everything is indeed gone. The two quickly completed the admission procedures and quickly parted ways at the kindergarten gate. Return home. Jiang Xingyu happily ran to his room. I'm going to school tomorrow, and I have to prepare a gift for my sister. Let me see what to give her. Shu Jin did not stop him. Through the crack in the door, she could still see Jiang Xingyu's happy look. She couldn't help but think of the relationship between the two children. Fu Yunchen, maybe Xingyu's half-sister. The two of them have such a close relationship, maybe because they are both Fu Yunchen's children. After that, Fu Yunchen would come to pick up Fu Yunchen every day, and maybe he would see Xingyu often. Then, would they be connected by blood? No, I can't think like that. Shu Jin muttered to himself, closed the door, turned his back to the door, and let out a long sigh. As long as her identity is not exposed, no one will know the connection between father and son. Now, giving my son the best education and environment is the top priority. Chapter 17, I'll take any garbage as long as I'm paid. The next morning, Jiang Xingyu was rarely enthusiastic about going to kindergarten. He got up early, washed, quickly finished his breakfast, put on his school bag, and waited obediently for Shu Jin to come out. Shu Jin put on delicate makeup, put on her favorite mint green skirt, and simply matched it with a jacket and snow-white high heels. Her hair was tied up with a plain white headband, looking casual and peaceful. Let's go. Shu Jin helped him carry his bag and held his hand as they went to school. When they arrived at the school gate, Jiang Xingyu asked her, "Mommy, are you going to meet anyone today?" "Aha!" Shu Jin nodded, helped her son straighten out the wrinkles on his clothes, patted his back, and took him to the teacher at the door. "Jiang Xingyu, today is your first day of school. Please take good care of him, teacher." The young teacher smiled gently, but before he could say anything, a sneer came from behind him. Who is this woman from a small family who dares to send her child to Ansel and block their way at the door? Shu Jin turned around and saw a plump woman in designer clothes looking at her with disdain, even pointing at her. "Look at what you're wearing. What a cheap brand. You don't look like a lady from a wealthy family at all. Let's go now. I need to talk to the teacher." The woman's voice was a little loud, and many ladies around who were bringing their children to school looked over and talked in low voices. Doesn't Ansel only accept young masters and young ladies from the upper class? How did someone like this get in? In today's world, many people spend money to buy face. Some people even laughed. Jiang Xingyu frowned immediately and wanted to retort to these adults. But Shu Jin gently held his shoulders. There's no need to argue with them. Some people, even if they are wearing gold and silver and designer clothes, can't hide their jealousy and comparison in their hearts. They have to say something bad about others in order to regain a little dignity as a human being. They are so pitiful, we can't rub salt into their wounds. After listening to this, Jiang Xingyu nodded seriously. Mommy is right. When the women nearby heard this, they couldn't sit still anymore. They knew Ansel was famous and were afraid that their children would lose face, so they dressed up like Christmas trees and piled all kinds of expensive things on themselves just to save face for their children. But Shu Jin just said a few words and ended up scolding them all. Especially the woman who spoke just now. She immediately narrowed her eyes and pointed directly at Shu Jin's nose. Who do you think you are? Who are you being sarcastic to here? I see that you are wearing cheap clothes. I am afraid that sending your child to Ansel has already ruined your family. What qualifications do you have to pity us? Hearing this, the other women began to denounce. There was an instant noise in front of the kindergarten. Some children were frightened and started crying, but no one cared. Shu Jin still maintained a calm look, but her ears hurt from the noise. She covered her son's ears and said calmly, I heard that Ansel is an aristocratic school, but now it seems that the school is willing to accept any garbage as long as they pay. For a moment, there was complete silence all around. The women were silent for a while, then suddenly got angry and started scolding her, pointing at her nose. The woman who had challenged Shu Jin just now raised her hand high and swept it towards Shu Jin's face. Who are you calling trash? You shameless little bitch, I must teach you a lesson today. Shu Jin heard the orderly footsteps beside her ears and stood there calmly without moving. The next moment, the security guard in grey uniform stopped the woman from slapping him. Led by the teacher, the remaining security guards stepped into the crowd, separating the noisy women, while whispering to each family that their children were frightened. All of a sudden, the ladies who had reacted came to their senses and whispered to coax their children. As soon as the woman who was stopped, the child beside her burst into tears. Wow. Son, it's okay. Mom just saw a bitch. Ahem. The teacher stepped forward in time, bent over and touched the crying child, half warning, half coldly looked at the parent, and whispered, This is Ansel, please don't swear in front of the child. The woman kept silent for the teacher's sake, and walked angrily into the kindergarten holding her son. When the others saw that the woman who had just led the trouble had stopped, and saw several teachers coming over to persuade them, they slowly dispersed. Shu Jin also let go of the hands that were covering her son's ears. The teacher walked forward helplessly and bowed 90 degrees to Shu Jin. I'm sorry, some parents who dote on their children too much are always irrational. In such a situation, we will deal with it in a timely manner next time. After that, another teacher came over, bent over and said to Jiang Xingyu, Student Jiang Xingyu, welcome to Ansel to study. Let the teacher take you to the classroom. Jiang Xingyu turned around and looked at Shu Jin. Shu Jin nodded slightly, and her son followed the teacher inside, while she helped the apologizing teacher in front of her up. As a teacher, he was able to quickly find the security guard and resolve a physical conflict. She also advised other unreasonable parents and apologized to her, which is enough to prove that the teacher did not flatter the powerful and bully the weak, and it can be seen that she is very pragmatic. She felt much more reassured about the school. I understand. I would also like to thank the teachers for stepping up today. Also, after seeing how your school handled the situation today, I feel more at ease to keep my child here. Thank you for your trust. The teacher smiled gently, and Shu Jin didn't bother to argue any further and just left. This is the sensible way the kindergarten handled it. I think my son won to be bullied in kindergarten. It was indeed a good deal when she agreed to Fu Yunchen's request and let Xingyu come to this kindergarten. After leaving the kindergarten, she went to a busy cafe and sat down. The golden sun passed over the open-air umbrella canopy, spread across the tabletop, and illuminated the curling white steam of hot cocoa beside her. Not long after Shu Jin sat down, a light purple figure leisurely landed opposite her. Shu. No, I should call you Song Center now. Long time no see, did you miss me? The beautiful lady snatched the hot cocoa from Shu Jin's hand and took a sip. Shu Jin was used to this. She ordered herself another cup of mocha and looked at the woman in front of her, her best friend, Shin Yueshi. Shin Yueshi had known her since school. She was lively and interesting, with two cute dimples at the corners of her mouth when she smiled. But whenever I encounter something, she always stands by me like a little lion. Thinking of this, Shu Jin stared into her eyes seriously. I miss you so much. Puff. Shin Yueshi almost sprayed hot cocoa on her face, her cheeks slightly hot. You are so affectionate, I feel embarrassed. Let's talk about you. A few days ago, Xin Yu sent me a message to complain about Jiang Yubai. What did he do? This time it was Shu Jin's turn to look stiff. This kid, why does he tell everything to his godmother? Chapter 18. It's time to sew his mouth. Shu Jin told Shin Yueshi everything that happened that night. After listening, Shin Yueshi frowned. He's really going too far. In the past, he would just pick brands for you, but now he even has to say whether your hair is long or not. He's a bit of a control freak. Well, and now I'm his wife, plus his desire to control me makes me feel like I'm a substitute. Shu Jin had a headache. Shin Yueshi's face turned gloomy and she slammed the cup on the table with a bang. Don't even think about it. You can't be a substitute for anyone. It's one thing to be an imposter, and it's another thing for him to be good to you. You can be grateful for that. But of course you have to make your own choices in your own life, and you can't be someone else's puppet. Every word and sentence spoken by Shin Yueshi was powerful. Shu Jin was startled by her serious look, and then a slight sour feeling rose in the tip of her nose. No matter where she goes, Shin Yueshi is always the one who protects her the most. She had no choice but to move forward and pinch Shin Yueshi's fingers. I know. That's why I chose the off-the-beaten-path Genetic Engineering Research Institute just to get out of Jiang Yubai's control. Shin Yueshi then raised her eyebrows slightly. That's more like it. Shu Jin laughed. The next moment, Shin Yueshi suddenly took out a business card from her bag and handed it to Shu Jin. My pharmaceutical company is ready and will open soon. I heard that your institute's pharmaceutical department is researching insulin and stem cell-related drugs. If we can cooperate, I would like to invite you to join us. So soon? Shu Jin was shocked. She remembered that Shin Yueshi had been laying the groundwork for this matter a few years ago. But the establishment of the pharmaceutical company seemed to happen earlier than they had expected. Shin Yueshi smiled and said, in the past few years, you are not the only one who has worked hard to study, I have also made great efforts. We will then cooperate with your research institute. You can invest the money you earn in me and I will give you equity. By then, you will have your own business in China. At this point, Shin Yueshi deliberately paused and emphasized the point solemnly. This way, you can slowly get out of Jiang Yubai's control. Xingyu won't have to call me all the time to complain. Shu Jin felt a little warm in her heart. Shin Yueshi knew everything that happened to her, and she also knew that her enemy was the Fu family, who had the power to cover the sky with one hand in the city. However, she never gave up her friend because of the intimidation of the Fu group. Shu Jin raised the corner of his mouth. Of course, I won't miss the opportunity to work with you. You have good vision. Shin Yueshi raised her chin proudly and chatted with Shu Jin about their recent situation. The topic came back to Jiang Xingyu. She asked, when will Xingyu finish school? I haven't seen my godson for a long time. I miss his soft hair. Don't mess him up as soon as you meet him. The boy has grown up a bit and is very conceited outside. Shu Jin smiled and gave an instruction, but the phone beside her suddenly started vibrating wildly. She made a gesture to Shin Yueshi to keep quiet, and so that the call on the screen was from the kindergarten teacher, so she answered it. Teacher Wang, I am Jiang Xingyu's parent. What can I do for you? Ms. Song, please come to school as soon as possible. What happened to Xingyu? Shu Jin stood up suddenly, and Shin Yueshi opposite her quickly picked up their bags and walked out. Teacher Wang said, Jiang Xingyu got into a fight with other children in the kindergarten and was injured. Injured? Shu Jin's heart was in suspense. She hurried to the kindergarten. Shin Yueshi was not a parent, and the situation inside was chaotic, so she waited outside. Office. As soon as I opened the door, the boy's crying pierced my eardrums and echoed in the room. But it wasn't Jiang Xingyu's crying. Xingyu. Shu Jin saw her son sitting on the sofa at a glance. Jiang Xingyu sat obediently on the small sofa. There was a red spot on his head and wounds on his knees, but he did a simple disinfection and applied a layer of white ointment. There were still many scratches on his clothes. He also raised his hand to protect Fu Yunchen, who was standing beside him without saying a word. Fu Yunchen seemed to be frightened. She opened her eyes, grabbed the corner of Jiang Xingyu's clothes, and didn't say anything. Teacher Wang, what's going on? Shu Jin asked patiently. The teacher at the side came over and looked at the boy who was crying loudly. In fact, the original class today was a building block class, where the children were asked to form teams by drawing lots and build blocks together. Jiang Xingyu and Shu Haoren were assigned to the same group. Fu Yunchen was a little autistic and had been following Jiang Xingyu during the day, so the three of them were assigned to form a team. However, during the trip, the three children suddenly started arguing, and then the teacher didn't dare to continue speaking and looked at Shu Jin tremblingly. After all, Jiang Xingyu and Fu Yunchen were the children introduced by President Fu himself. She was afraid that the more she spoke, the angrier the parents would get. Shu Jin's face was as cold as ice, and her sharp eyes swept over the child named Shu Haoren. Although the little fat boy had a bruised face and many more wounds on his body than Jiang Xingyu, she still couldn't suppress the anger in her heart. But the whole story still needs to be clarified. She leaned over, gently touched her son's face, and looked him in the eye. Xingyu, what happened? Jiang Xingyu rubbed his face hard and glared at the fat boy. He called Nyan a mute and injured her leg with a building block. I tried to reason with him, but he said that I was the one who did it. Jiang Xingyu's voice suddenly became hoarse. He looked at Shu Jin with red eyes, lowered his head in silence, and rubbed the tip of his nose with some grievance. Shu Jin frowned. The fat man named Shu Haoren suddenly jumped off the stool and pointed at Jiang Xingyu and Fu Yunchen and spoke. You are a little bastard who was born by a father but never taught by one. And you are just a dumb little thing who can't talk. You have a mouth for nothing. You might as well sew it up. The building blocks are all mine. Why should I share them with you too? After saying that, the little fat boy started howling again. When Fu Yunchen heard the word mute, she seemed to remember something. She suddenly buried her head in Jiang Xingyu's arms and trembled slightly. Jiang Xingyu clenched his fists, his eyes red as he was about to come up and punch him again. Shu Jin quickly calmed the two emotionally unstable children, hugged the two children's backs to comfort them, and looked coldly at the teacher next to him. Teacher, this should be the crux of the quarrel between the three children. This kid is always swearing. According to what he just said, he has a long mouth but it is useless. Should I also sew up his mouth to stop him from saying hurtful things? How dare you sew my mouth? The little fat boy heard this and his eyes narrowed, almost pointing at Shu Jin's nose. When my parents come, I will definitely not let you go. Tear your mouth apart. Chapter 19. It's time to let your son reflect on this. Shu Jin's fist hardened. Although this child is very young, what he says is chilling. The teachers tried to comfort them and act as peacemakers. Jiang Xingyu's parents, please calm down first. After all, children speak without restraint. Wait until Shu Haoren's parents come, and then the adults can talk slowly. Don't get angry in front of the child. Little Shu Haoren, please come and sit over here first. Get lost. Who do you think you are? I want my parents, wow. Shu Haoren's cries echoed in the room. Shu Jin resisted the urge to beat up the naughty kid and tried to comfort Jiang Xingyu, but he saw Fu Yunchen's arms twitching as she hugged her son, tears welling up in her eyes but refusing to fall. Shu Jin's heart felt like it was being pinched hard. She couldn't help but move forward, first hugged Fu Yunchen in her arms, pressed her head against her neck, and gently stroked her back. Nyan, it's okay. Woo. Fu Yunchen let out a sob, and her hot tears instantly soaked Shu Jin's shoulders. Shu Jin felt a pang of pain in her heart when she heard this. Jiang Xingyu, who was standing beside her, also came forward, patted Nyan on the back, and coaxed her in a low voice, Don't be afraid, I will protect you in the future. Woo, brother, mom. Fu Yunchen muttered incoherently, and finally cried out the tears that had been accumulating for a long time. Shu Jin murmured, It's okay to cry, it's okay, Nyan. Fu Yunchen's crying became louder and louder. The fat boy opposite suddenly climbed onto the chair. You little dumb boy, you're making so much noise. This damn kid. Shu Jin put Fu Yunchen back into Jiang Xingyu's arms and was about to teach this naughty child a lesson. The teacher quickly stopped her and lowered her voice. Ms. Song, we know that your child was sent by Mr. Fu, but you have no relationship with Mr. Fu. However, Shu Haoren's parents are indeed powerful, so don't mess with them. The teacher was obviously doing this for her own good, and kept winking at her. But Shu Jin's eyes turned cold, So, teacher, do you think that my Xingyu should put up with this? The look was as cold as frost. The teacher felt a chill down his spine, but he still made the suggestion seriously. There is nothing we can do about it. After all, power can only oppress people. Otherwise, how about this? Let Jiang Xingyu apologize to Shu Haran today. Tomorrow, I will change Jiang Xingyu and Fu Yunchen's class. Shu Jin was silent. Jiang Xingyu listened and wiped Fu Yunchen's tears unwillingly. On the contrary, Shu Haran folded his arms smugly, looked at Jiang Xingyu arrogantly, and said, "Bastard." After he finished speaking, Jiang Xingyu was about to stand up. But what was faster than his movement was the sound of Shu Jin's high heels hitting the ground. Shu Jin raised his chin slightly and took a step towards the teacher with a cold look in his eyes. My son did nothing wrong, so he doesn't need to apologize. Moreover, Shu Haran used foul language and hurt others with building blocks, which caused psychological and physical damage to my child. I will hire a lawyer to ask him to pay for mental damages and medical expenses. The surroundings suddenly became quiet. Shu Jin's voice was sonorous and powerful. They have the power, and the country has the law. When will it be the law's turn to bow to the power of this group of people? After being praised like this, several teachers dared not respond. Even Shu Haran suddenly stopped crying and his calves became weak. At this moment, the door was suddenly broken open. Two figures came in one after another. The man in the lead walked straight to Shu Jin and pointed at her nose. How dare you? Do you know who my husband is? Your son beat up my son, and you dare to ask for compensation for mental damages. I think you don't want to stay in the country anymore. The figure in front of him was reflected in Shu Jin's pupils, and his body suddenly tensed up. Shu Haran's parents are actually. While she was stunned, Shu Haran's father came up to her and said, "What kind of mother do you have? What kind of child do you raise? Look at what you have done to my baby. Believe it or not, I can make sure your son will never go to kindergarten in his life." A familiar voice. Familiar faces. Shu Jin felt that all the blood in his body was coagulating, and the rapidly flowing time froze at this moment. She opened her mouth slightly and looked at the man's face, and the few wrinkles on his face. The word "dad" suddenly felt like a lump in my throat. Shu Hongqing, her biological father. Now he was pointing at her nose and threatening her. When she looked at the woman next to Shu Hongqing, her ferocious face completely overlapped with the woman in the photo Jiang Yubai gave her many years ago. A few years ago, not long after she was rescued by Jiang Yubai, she learned something from Jiang Yubai's investigation. Shu Yin, whom she had always regarded as her adopted sister, was not an adopted daughter picked up by her father from outside, but the biological daughter of her father Shu Hongqing and his mistress Lin Ruxian. Jiang Yubai was even afraid that she didn't recognize Lin Ruxian, so he took out a photo and showed it to her. Now, Shu Yin's biological mother stood with her biological father, pointing at her nose, blaming her, and making things difficult for their two sons. Shu Jin could no longer hear the two people scolding, but slowly looked at the little fat man standing on the chair. The fist gradually tightened. It wasn't enough that they had a daughter, Shu Yin, and after so many years, they also gave birth to a son. She has a half-brother. And this younger brother was full of shit and even beat his own precious son. Joke. What a joke. Shu Jin was so angry that her whole body was shaking. She thought of her mother who had been kept in the dark. She probably didn't know that her father had betrayed her for more than 10 years and had 2 children with her. Shu Hongqing and Lin Ruxian scolded for a long time, but they saw bloodshot eyes in Shu Jin's eyes, but he didn't move, and his anger was rising. Shu Hongqing went straight up and pushed Shu Jin hard. Are you a dumb bastard too? Since you're scared, why don't you let your son kneel down and apologize to my precious son? Shu Jin staggered after being pushed and slowly came to his senses. Jiang Xingyu and Fu Yunchen were shocked and wanted to come over to help her, but Shu Jin forced a smile that was uglier than crying, waved to the 2 children, stood up, and met Shu Hongqing's angry eyes. When she was in primary school, she was bullied at school. I didn't see Shu Hongqing speaking up for me, but I just heard him talking to me in a light-hearted manner. You're so old, but you're still being bullied by kids younger than you? Why don't they bully anyone else but you? Now, he cares so much about this son. In his eyes, my mother and I might not even be as good as a dog. Thinking of this, Shu Jin became almost disheartened, and even his words became sharp. She smiled and returned all the teachings she had received. Your son is so fat, and he was beaten like this by my son? Why are other children not beaten by my son, but your son is so blind that he sticks his head out to get a punch? Shouldn't you ask your son to reflect on this? Chapter 20. There is also an old lady who wants to be an assassin and launch a sneak attack. Shu Yin was furious and almost wanted to take action. Several teachers hurriedly stopped the people, but Lin Ruxian was furious when she saw her son covered in bruises and that these teachers were still protecting Shu Jin. You little bitch are so unreasonable. You even cursed my husband and beat my son. Today, if you don't make your children apologize, don't even think about walking out of this door. Captain, I didn't expect someone to arrive before us. A minion looked at Shinji and said, the defense of the demon spirit is incomparable to that of the evil spirit. After being bombarded by us, its health value actually dropped by a quarter. If it continues to develop like this, wouldn't it be much easier for us? Qiu Mingzhu had already called Director Hu and didn't need to register. She could just go to the emergency room directly. The ward had also been arranged. No matter whether she needed to be hospitalized or not, she would just stay there for a few days for observation. I seldom use this skill. The purpose is very simple. Its auxiliary effect is very prominent. In order for my brothers to better train themselves and improve their strength, I don't want to offer them such a promotion. Take these hurtful gambles. His words were watertight and well reasoned. The next scene to be filmed is the birthday scene. Have you all read the script? Zhang Qi looked at the two of them and asked. Haunter, which was still flying, clenched its hands tightly and flew rapidly towards the front of Blue Crocodile again. Fourth brother, fifth brother, eighth brother, 11th brother, were beaten to death by them. Kang En pointed at Zhang Yuren and others and said to the Star Wolf, Golden Wing Jade, and Spotted Biao. I got out safely, so what kind of punishment can I get? Zhu Qian shrugged and said casually. Don't just sit there and complain that the grapes are sour. What's wrong with the blue equipment? Do you have a share of it? You don't want it. What can you do if you want it? It's your equipment. After Ouyang Zhu put the helmet into his backpack, he replied to Optimus Prime in a bad mood. Not to mention that Zhu Shan encountered a crack in the void, but two demon fairies actually stepped out of the crack and launched an extremely ferocious attack on him as soon as they saw him. It was extremely rare for him, a Jindan cultivator, to speak like this to an early foundation building cultivator. But Jian Ruorchen was not someone else, and she had the qualifications to make Mo Beihan lower his posture. As if following the approximate footprints of Chen Pingan's last time going out, as if demonstrating to this world, the long sword broke through the window like a white rainbow, left the yard, came to the alley, swept across the alley, entered the street, and passed by Ding Ying. Fan Angui returned to Fan Anxin's cabin. Not long after, the cabin door opened and Fan Anxin walked in. At the same time, in Qin Jinhuan's office in Qingqian building, Bian Zijuan was reporting to Qin Jinhuan. Xia Jinyu sighed deeply while sitting in the car, then leaned over the steering wheel and stared at the bag of plaster in a daze. Yin Xiaoqian, still wearing a hospital gown and with messy hair, suddenly appeared at the end of the corridor and staggered towards Mu Yu. However, not only was he not disappointed, but a brilliant smile appeared on his face. The other party had a powerful person in the Dharma realm as his guard, so his identity was definitely extraordinary. In addition, their number was as high as 6,000, and as soon as they appeared, the auras of their cultivation at the peak of the Dharma realm converged together, directly dispersing the thick demonic energy and forming a strong evil spirit above their heads. Dong Wanqing couldn't have done this. Mu Yu's voice was weak, but her tone was very certain. After 3 days, all the herbs on this mountain can be picked by anyone, especially the martial artists who have storage magic weapons. They don't have to worry about the people from the medicine demon sect coming to them to take medicine, because they can't sense how many herbs you have picked. Guo said with a bad smile. Chapter 21. It's Nyan Nyan's fault. Oh, Hairen, the ground is cold. Lin Ruxian went to pull her son. Shu Hairen slapped Lin Ruxian on the face, no apology. Lin Ruxian was slapped by her son, but she still hugged her son to coax him, and then glared at Shu Jin fiercely. From what you said, you are not that. Of course I know. So I installed the output end of the remote control device on the Haiyan assault aircraft. This is the position closest to the restriction machine. After testing, the remote control instrument will operate normally in more than 95% of cases. Dr. Big Head folded his hands in front of his chest and straightened his chest. Sister, can I come first? After all, I was ordered by the sect master to wipe out the Black Tiger Hall. The sect master also said that the great item should belong to our Qingjiao wolf sect. At this time, Lang Qinqiu directly brought out the sect master. Isn't Q Wang a great man? Let's see what you can do. Although she is 1 year older than Chen Feng, she looks like this. Her delicate face seems to have a kind of innate protective aura, which makes even old Mai fall in love with her. The Ghost Clan warriors were shocked, but unfortunately they still couldn't escape from the palm. The terrifying golden hand slapped down fiercely, and the Ghost Clan in the ancient tomb was actually slapped into nothingness by this palm. When Sun Huaxian heard what Mrs. Li said, she thought, could it be that she remembered it? That shows Linger didn't lie to us. When everyone heard this and saw Long Shangkun's actions, they all jumped back at the same time. As everyone dispersed, the body of the young master of the Lin family suddenly exploded, and the pieces of flesh flew everywhere, and then slowly melted in the air, leaving nothing behind. It was as if nothing had happened just now. Mrs. Wu gently stroked Zhang Yin's head and sang softly, "Good boy, good baby. Don't cry, good man, your parents will give you a warm embrace." Dad Tilder. Dong Zhang cried out when he heard the last sentence, with helplessness and sadness in his tone. That feeling of powerlessness spread deeply in Wang Xuanlong's heart, as if it was unstoppable like wild weeds, spreading throughout his heart. At this time, in the forest of beasts, a huge purple gold wolf king swooped down, with purple gold lightning flashing all over its body, and killed a martial emperor-level monster with one claw. A huge rectangular metal cabin that looks like a 2-story building. Its 4 walls are wrapped in solid dark red metal and protected by a layer of bright energy shield. There was a flash of urgency in Clyde's azure eyes. He quickly pushed away by Lang and Wei Jinder who were in the way, turned the handle and forced the door open. But at this moment, Lin Cheng seemed to have heard nothing, just grinning in the middle of the room. At that time, it would be better to retreat and ascend to the 5th level, so that you can travel to various big worlds and witness more prosperity. Emperor Zhuanshu is indeed a giant in the water elemental school. He is able to suppress countless dragon gods and water gods. He is known as the Black Emperor of the North for a reason. The city god is usually a 5th-rank extraordinary person, whose main task is to sit in charge and patrol an area within a large region, which is usually between 3-5 cities. Fortunately, Sarutabi Hiruzen did not dare to be too presumptuous at this moment, otherwise, the High Natter would probably have to hold a rebellion meeting. The emergence of the college system was analyzed by everyone as Chen Shushan's reform of the Chen State's talent system and was part of the Chen State's Gender New Deal. Huang Banxian observed the space on both sides and found that all the branches leading to other routes had been blocked. There are many candidates in reality: Li Yi, Luo Xian, Chen Hanshan, Fang Xinyang, even Clyde and others are still there. Although Fang Xinyang was unwilling to be fooled, he had to endure it, because it was now obvious that the specific tasks of the 4th branch conflicted with the specific tasks of the 7th branch. Chapter 22. Who gave you the courage to bully my daughter? As Fu Yunchen listened to every word, the light in her eyes gradually dimmed. She lowered her head and stared at her toes, hardly hearing anything being said. I remember that every time I took a few steps, my father would pick me up. I remembered the disgust in the bodyguard's eyes. There is also Shu Haoran's urging. She fell into darkness, and finally raised her eyes with lifeless eyes. If it weren't for Luo Chena, she wouldn't have lived in fear all day and couldn't sleep at night. When she thought of this, Luo Qingrou's body tensed up, her hands under her sleeves clenched tightly, and the cruelty in her eyes was clearly revealed. She agreed. Feng Lin's expectant eyes relaxed, his eyebrows were full of joy, and his hands were shaking with excitement. After Luo Chena escaped from Luo's house, he ran to the city gate, but found that the gate was closed and he couldn't get out. Helplessly, Luo Chena had to wander around the city with his bag on his back. After lunch, the workers continued to dig holes. Changla also went to take a look. Since there were a lot of steel bars mixed in the concrete, the drill bit would be destroyed if it touched the steel bars. In order to avoid damaging the drill bit, they had to use the most primitive digging method: manual digging. Where on earth was he? Who was the person behind him? What was going on? You're sick. I think so too. If I wasn't sick, why would I marry a wife like you? Ling Feng glanced at Cheng Xue nonchalantly, tilted his neck innocently and said calmly. As soon as the Luo mansion was raided, someone from the palace came to summon her to the palace for a meal. She was not stupid, so she naturally understood that this visit to the palace was not just for a meal. Your white clothes are completely dirty now. Lin Yi pointed at Xie Ziyuan, who was covered in dust and mud, and couldn't help but laugh. At this time, except for the clacking sound of the patrol team's footsteps, the military camp of 10,000 people looked like a military camp. Lan Xian shrugged his shoulders and said to himself with a depressed look, "Anyway, I always come last." But even though he admitted this, he still encouraged himself, smiled and said to Ziyuan, "I'll treat you to tea next time I'm free." Then he walked up to the stone platform. He blinked and looked at Xiaohua. "What are you looking at? Isn't 2 stars good enough?" Xiaohua said, unhappy. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone immediately became agitated. After all, the people here were all from the Wood Domain Palace, and they came here for the divine bones in the first place, so when everyone heard these words, they immediately started discussing it. Yao Kai looked at Yi Qiu deeply. She really didn't expect that Yi Qiu would act decisively and ruthlessly, and there was no taboo in his actions. The Tai sect had experienced a great war, and there were ruins everywhere, and everything was in need of reconstruction. Durante's expression, which was constantly changing like wind and clouds, fell into Durante's eyes. Durante, who had succeeded in his plan, raised an imperceptible arc at the corner of his mouth. He originally didn't care because he thought it was pointless to argue with a boy. Besides, if his mother knew about it, he would be scolded. Marja was busy until 6:30 before he could get away. After greeting the diners at his restaurant, Marja followed Erhu to Ju Kai's office. But old Jin had concealed all this before. Who knew that Wang Jiao was such a big mouth and told it all directly? Yi Qiu's strength made Hong Wan unable to understand. She was only at the spirit transformation realm and could instinctively feel that Yi Qiu's realm was higher than hers. Facing the old man, Hong Wan felt that the old man's aura was even more terrifying than Yi Qiu's. Qiu Chen, who was flying, felt something was wrong and discovered the abnormal Mu Yi. A hint of murderous intent appeared in his eyes. Mo Wook glanced at the 2 people from the Plain Merchant Alliance who were still imprisoned in the cracks between the worlds. Seeing that they had not been rescued by the people from the Plain Merchant Alliance, he felt relieved. Chapter 23. Who are you looking at through me? Certainly. Shu Jin admitted frankly, "After all, I heard you doing PUA to Nyan Nyan with my own ears just now, even though the surveillance camera failed to record your lip movements. But I can confirm that every word you said, whether right or wrong, was just to make Nyan Nyan feel guilty. You seem very skilled. You must have used this trick many times. What exactly happened? Manager Hu, can you please tell me directly?" Wu Yun felt awe-inspiring as a reporter, raised his eyebrows and asked seriously. "Maybe there is another coffin in the main tomb." The 2 professors looked at each other and had a disagreement. No one present dared to say a word. They also felt a little strange as to why Li Ming became quiet after his angry roar. Nanshan slept for a whole day and got off the boat. He put one hand in front of his mouth and whistled suddenly. A red horse came galloping over. He patted the horse's neck, and Nanshan jumped on the horse and galloped all the way. Lin Xiaoran entered Lingshan and headed inward. The deeper he went into Lingshan, the quieter it became. When he reached the 3rd outer layer, it was already sparsely populated. Almost all dead. Didn't Jiang Feng incorporate the orcs and zombies before the War of Unification? 3 races can't defeat the Zerg. Wei Kai found it hard to believe. His face was calm, his eyes were peaceful, and Wu Yun couldn't tell what he was thinking at the moment. Sure enough, not long after Lu Qingyi finished speaking, the advantage that Lin Xiao maintained with the help of the recoil force was broken. However, since it has come to this, Long Xinglin will naturally not let it go. After all, the competition is over, so he can focus on breaking through to the 2nd level of Xuanzong Realm. The 3rd level of Xuanzong Realm is only a matter of time. The servants of the Su Mansion were recently sent out of the mansion by the 2 masters of the Su family and assigned to these more than 10 merchant ships. The sky was covered with dense dark clouds, the wind and rain raged towards every corner, and rumbling thunder sounded from time to time. Although it doesn't seem like a big deal, to be honest, after sitting in a hard seat for 3 days, Ji Yubei was a little exhausted. In fact, we have obtained a lot of information from Lin Fenglong this time. The only drawback is probably that there is no news about the employer who issued the task. Lilith blinked, looked at Xia next to Levi, showed a relieved expression, and closed the door again. "Thank you, but no." Luonan felt weak all over, his head was swollen, and he was completely out of shape. Of course, he didn't dare to drink. Having paid such a huge price but failing to complete the task assigned by the minister, I'm afraid none of those present will survive after returning. I need a drop of your blood, and then we can practice at the same time. Shina said. But the crisis was eventually resolved by a tower in the center of Campbell City called the Observatory Tower, which was actually a super scary wizard tower. If anyone dares to interfere, my life sword will show no mercy. The supreme elder of the Kangling sect shouted loudly, and a huge shadow of a spiritual sword appeared behind him. The murderous intent on the sword's edge intimidated everyone. Does it count or not? At least it counts now. I just happened to know that Chu was having this party, so I came to attend. I didn't expect that you two had such a fate and actually work in the same unit. Chen Ken said with a smile. You know shit. Xingqian looked at the sea with a serious expression. He always felt that there was something weird on the sea. A sense of crisis surged in his heart, making Xingqian dare not act rashly. Although Guan Yun and Yang Qing had never met, they had reached a consensus on this point. Either someone in the court was backing him up, or the county magistrate was being too bold. Looking at the three large black characters above, Xiao Xiong couldn't help but sigh. Throughout history, those who succeed become kings, and those who fail become bandits. If Princess Gaoyang had succeeded in usurping the throne in history, the records about her would probably be different, right? Those who accused her of seducing BNG and corrupting the Buddhist atmosphere would probably have disappeared. Chapter 24, Find a Way to Protect Mom. Fu Yunchen remained silent, but his eyes became deep and dark. Shu Jin took in the emotions in his eyes. The more he tried to test her in secret, the more she would do the opposite and ask directly. Sure enough, this man still had some doubts about himself. Shu Jin thought so, waved to him, and went back to the kindergarten to comfort the two children. As the director of the Municipal Bureau of the capital of China, if you think seriously, he can probably stand on equal footing with a figure of Lin Guangming's level. Without the blood pearl guarding the gate, the power of the entire altar was greatly weakened, and the seal that imprisoned the king of sea beasts gradually loosened, allowing it to awaken from its slumber. It let out a deafening roar, launching a new wave of sea beasts and summoning a large number of sea monsters to attack the water empire. His purpose of participating in the trial in the Great Wilderness Mountain this time was to obtain the Liangyi stone. He had never thought about other aspects, nor did he care about them. 1,000 Ye's coins were dropped all at once. How could Tiger not know that Rice was really asking for a lot at the beginning? He looked at Rice with some amusement. She clenched her fists tightly, letting her slender nails dig into her palms as dark black blood flowed out. Sang Yang tried hard to suppress the resentment in her heart, but she just couldn't calm down. The alchemy workshop is an important place in the White Tiger Academy. It is usually strictly managed and ordinary people cannot enter casually unless they are qualified alchemy students. Li Ying and Dong Yizhuang ignored Pang Wanchuan, and after returning to their camp, they gathered their troops with Zhu Tong and retreated towards the main camp. But when everyone saw her face clearly, a hint of disgust appeared in their eyes. Upon hearing this, the soldiers hurriedly tied up the fake queen tightly. Hua Rong and Fang La were already fighting each other there. Jin Shin had completely calmed down and naturally stopped being arrogant. She said goodbye to Mrs. Sui with a smile and got into the car. He just felt his back gradually getting hot, and when he turned around, he saw green wings growing on his back. However, due to the slow transmission of magic power, the expansion speed of the green fire wings was also very slow. After seeing this, Zhang Yong breathed a sigh of relief and put his heart at ease. It seems that they really made the right decision to come here today. Not only did they see such an interesting show, but now even their god of war has come. His words made Yirong's face flush instantly. Such a blatant question made her unable to answer, as if she was so hungry. But thinking that maybe he was hinting at something, Yirong nodded shyly. The shyness on her delicate face, like a fairy, made her even more charming. And Nianchu looked up. He looked particularly handsome in the sunlight shining through the gaps between the trees. She reached out to touch his cheek and smiled at him. It's a pity that Bonnie didn't notice this. He was only thinking about how to torture and abuse Qiu Xian in order to win the favor of Master Ji Yubo and satisfy his own perverted desires. Oh, look at me. Why did I bring up such a boring topic with you? Do you want to know about the situation of this school? Sumomo felt very embarrassed when she suddenly realized that she had talked so much with a strange boy without realizing it. The sky is blue, the sea is green, the clouds are white, and on the clear and quiet sea, dozens of huge and sturdy ships are scattered on the jade-like sea. The sails are raised to the top of the mast, filled with wind, and the sharp bows like knives cut through the blue sea, riding the wind and waves to the north. After a moment of indifference, Shu Qi immediately ran to the bed, opened the quilt and got in. With the air conditioner on, Chen Hao swallowed his saliva again. His lower body had already grown vigorously like new shoots in the field. In the room, there was silence. Chen Hao panted lightly, and Shu Qi breathed heavily. Chapter 25, Find a Way to Protect Mom. It was the first time that Fu Yunchen caught the black card that fell from his chest. He looked at the woman who was running towards him breathlessly just to return the card, and instead of getting angry he laughed. You deserve it. No need. Shu Jin was too lazy to explain and prepared to go back. Fu Yunchen looked at her back, and sure enough, Jiu Ziyu looked at her back, still worried. Just as he opened the car door and was about to chase after her, a car stopped at his feet. When passing by the body of the killed Zhang Dequan, he pulled out the long swords that were stuck in Zhang Dequan's body and the tree and used them as temporary weapons. Okay. Muron Sen said, and hurriedly put the medicine box on the ground. He rummaged through it and suddenly a syringe came out. R. He shouted and rushed behind Lan Xiangting and suddenly stabbed the needle into Lan Xiangting's arm. Now that I have spoken a few more words from my heart to the ninth prince, I am still worried that someone might find out. However, this thought was killed in her mind when he closed the door. She and Long Sichu were listening quietly. When they were both feeling a little emotional, Grandpa Long's voice suddenly stopped, and the story he was telling ended just like that. This was a tragic traffic accident, and doctors from all departments of the hospital were dispatched to support the emergency department. Hearing Ning Qian say this, Shen Qinren's heart skipped a beat. What Ning Qian said really made sense. When she ran away from home and encountered difficulties, she didn't think of herself, but Gao Zhan. Perhaps this really means that the person she cares about is Gao Zhan. Yin Yin couldn't help laughing. She didn't expect him to be so humorous. She finally discovered that he had some characteristics. The ninth prince, however, showed a slight smile on his face, took the armor brought by the servant, drew his sword without saying a word, and chopped it hard a few times. As the sky gradually brightened, more and more people came to the market. Li Shen watched as another person asked about the price of wheat straw, and finally bought a few baskets and left. He was in a state of confusion and could not make up his mind. Su Yunwan was startled. His sudden action caught her off guard. She tried to pull her hand back, but he held her hand tightly. The Falling Stars Heaven Festival was like the night sky beyond the 9 Heaven Star River, sparkling, and like the crystal clear pearls and gems passing through the bottom of the deep sea. This kind of sword of power was definitely not found in the world. It was far superior to the 10 great swords of the time. If it was repeated, the power of the sword to cut off thousands of mountains had been seen by everyone in the world. Hundreds of people gathered in the fairy palace, among whom the powerful ones were like clouds. All the elders of the butterfly fairy clan came, and even several princesses and young masters came. At this time, no one from the butterfly fairy clan was absent, and the whole hall was noisy. After listening to Yu Qing's words, he looked at her intently. He saw that although Yu Qing was pregnant, her skin was fair and flawless, her expression was gentle, she smiled lightly, and her eyebrows and eyes were picturesque. Under the bright autumn sunshine, she felt as if time was passing quickly and the years were peaceful. Since that is what your wife wants, I naturally have no objection. Shen Zhongnan smiled. He did not think that Lord Lu was being perfunctory. After all, as an official in a prefecture, it was not necessary. But if it is the level of Grand Mage Batan and Grand Mage Havardo, then it is extraordinary. Jingju borders the Central Plains in the north, Baiyu in the south, Wuhui in the east, and Bashu in the west. It is well connected and has been a battleground for military strategists since ancient times. The prefect of Changsha was willing to risk the world's disapproval and hastily raised an army just to seize this precious land. With this precious land, he had the opportunity to go north to the Central Plains or west to Bashu. Before Ouyang Yang could do anything, Otlan was helped out by someone, wearing a pair of sunglasses to cover the dark circles around his eyes. Chapter 26. It turns out that she wanted to spend other men's money. Lin Ruxian had been speaking up for her daughter, but when she heard that her precious son was going to be beaten, she suddenly became silent and refused to help. Shu Yin then got up from the ground and sneered at her parents in front of her. Who is so ignorant? When did Shu Haoren fight before? I helped him to solve the problem every time? Now he hit Fu Yunchen's beloved daughter. Even if I tore her face off, Fu Yunchen would not stop. Shu Yangyang knew that it was necessary to build up everyone's confidence at this time, and she also had to think of a solution now. In that case, let's go back and rest first. We're exhausted after these days. The Wenjiu siblings got up and prepared to go to bed. Da Kuei's marksmanship is among the best in the entire independent brigade. He has killed many Japanese soldiers single-handedly, but unfortunately there is something wrong with his brain. Seeing that there was no trace of Master Han, the men who were trying to snatch the bride dispersed in disappointment one by one, ready to go and snatch the next Jinsha. The evil energy floating in the air disappeared, and the monks who were in chaos quickly calmed their minds and regained their sanity. Yifeng has worked in the combat readiness department for many years. Although he is introverted and doesn't talk much, he has always had a harmonious relationship with everyone. Bei Gongmu remained calm, and even though his body was covered with pinhole-like wounds, he still stood firm. Only after Kui Chang's back completely disappeared from everyone's sight did Mo Nian and the others slowly stop. Seeing the two kids' eager expressions, Li Ku had no choice but to ask the guard squad leader to take them over. HMPH, fight with me. Bai Ranyin immediately stood up, walked into the room and started choosing clothes that represented victory. If I win, you will be my policewoman wife, how about that? Lin Qianyu said with a teasing look on his face. Finally, she threw the sheets into the washing machine and even added 2 more spoons of detergent, intending to wash them several times. The reason why Zhang Taijian said this and made such arrangements is not complicated. Mu Feng did the same. He blocked all perception of himself and the outside world, and added the power transmitted by Qin Yu and the other two to his own Nether Emperor prison. With just this movement, he completely forgot that he had injured his back shoulder last night. The wound was pulled and he groaned. Okay, then I'll be waiting for Mr. Bai, the richest man. After getting the confirmation, Lin Qianyu responded and then hung up the phone. You? Li Daoyang couldn't understand why Shangguan Yuer had to side with Tang Feng, and was speechless. At this time, the clay soldiers shouted and rushed towards Tang Feng with their spears. Seeing them besieging them, Tang Feng swung the cold star sword in his hand, and the flashing cold light flashed on the sword. Then Tang Feng moved, and the sword moved, and countless sword chi surged. However, he should be in his 40s or 50s, but he still looks like he is in his 20s. He has no idea how to explain this. Without realizing the impending danger, Chen Ziki stopped the car not far from them with a smile on his face. However, he did not know the production method of the Heavenly Corpse blood armor. He only told Shen Lanshi the general research direction. Looking at Li Xiaohong's eyes full of happiness, Su Chen was also moved, so he turned around and kissed her again. Chen Ziki repeated Qi Qian's name through gritted teeth. His voice was extremely weak, and he was breathing heavily intermittently. The painful expression on his face did not last long, and he pursed his lips and frowned, unlike the usual calm and composed Mr. Chen. Because of this, even if the transplant fails, the damage to the martial soul and spirit is within the tolerable range. At first I thought everything was new and everything was good, and as for humans eating fish, I didn't think there was anything wrong. Chapter 27. She is very good to children. Hey, aren't you taking that a bit too far? Chen Yi couldn't listen any longer, and continued to say under Fu Yunchen's cold gaze, she has always been my outstanding junior schoolmate. She just wanted to have a meal with me. There's no need for her to accept humiliation from an outsider like you. Outsider? Fu. How is this possible? Walker and Riley exclaimed immediately. You know, they didn't hold back just now. How could someone destroy their magic weapons with bare hands? Originally the southern border of the Bulge Empire, now a large territory including the Kalen Empire, Qingde, Haiyuan, etc., Xiao Yilong's Western Army Group is stationed here, like a vassal king, becoming the actual controller here. The sword energy passed through the old man, and its remaining force brushed past the tall man's body and fell onto the lake. With a crack, it shattered a large piece of ice, revealing an ice hole several meters in radius. Just like Lin Jie is going to Wanzhenjiao this time, no one can stop him. Xia Bingshan sighed lightly. After about 10 minutes, Yu Junting finally walked out of the room, and Hu Dejiang still followed behind him. Just go when I tell you to. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Ouyang Feifei said unhappily. Impossible, impossible. Wei Yilan seemed to be immersed in her own world. She could not see the people outside and could not hear the outside voices. She just kept repeating this sentence. When I returned to the table with beer, I found that Lin Shui had already arranged all the green rice dumplings and was even blowing on one. He had nothing to say about this disciple. Sooner or later, the heavenly court would know her goodness. The fifth heaven could not hold a god like her. Gao Hu, you are too presumptuous. The two policemen shouted at the same time, their veins bulging. But Gao Hu just glanced at them, and the murderous look in his eyes made the two policemen shut up at the same time. Are you planning to use Chu Hanxian to protect Chu Wenlan? Yes, if Chu Hanxian was still alive, the Emperor of Northern Chu would at most feel humiliated. After all, it was Prince Xian who rashly led his troops to attack Haotian city first, and he had no reason to cause trouble. Xian Yuan Qianyu said lightly. Not long after, the eunuch who usually served him personally came in wearing court robes, walked silently to Dongfang Lingfeng's side, pretending that he saw nothing. She wanted to ask all the questions in her heart in front of Guamian. There were many things she didn't understand. HMPH. Su Qinyi, who had been waiting for Li Rui to keep her, was really angry this time. She snorted coldly, then turned and left. The noble servant's words made Luo Yuling feel inexplicably melancholy. Although she felt this melancholy was strange, she did not think much about it. She just thought that she had indeed ignored this pitiful noble servant, and she felt a little sorry. He is really loving. Look, he carries me on his back, step by step, walking slowly and lightly, as if he is afraid that I will feel unsafe. A large drop of saliva dripped onto the ground again. The baby stared at the red pearl intently, and his eyes began to shine. Obviously he hated the act of submitting his will to the flesh, but at this moment, he couldn't help but feel lucky that he didn't let her die. Maybe it was not a bad thing. What is there for a grown man to be afraid of? You were once an S-level person. The red spider lily bloomed lightly and then fell onto the river. Master, it's thundering and raining. Zizhuan, the chief eunuch Li Sheng, the imperial physician Qian, and Taoye Ying Luo were all overjoyed and cheered. Amy naturally has no shortage of things to grow. The common people may have to put in more effort to get a good harvest. Mo Ranchen had never seen the farming process, but at least he could guess that under different conditions, those with poor conditions would have to spend more time and effort. Chapter 28, Reunion. No matter how Shu Yin tried to find excuses to stay, Fu Yunchen remained cold and focused on the group's work. The assistant was sweating profusely and repeatedly advised, Ms. Shu, Mr. Fu is indeed very busy today, please go back early. Shu Yin looked at him coldly, and seeing that Fu Yunchen didn't look back, she left angrily. She turned and walked out, before opening the car door, stabbing. Gao Linhua curled up in a ball on the bed. When Fu Chiu brought the boiled medicine to her, she couldn't even stand up to drink it. Following the direction of the surge, Bai Song used his clever strength to slowly retreat towards the city. With so many people here, something must have happened, so he decided not to watch the excitement for the time being. This vision is indeed extraordinary, proving that the other party has seen through that this low-level business cannot be sustained in the long run, and simply decides not to get involved in this muddy water. Ling Shan easily lifted up the leader of the three winter monsters, went down the tunnel, and closed the entrance again according to his instructions. Then he took a step and walked deeper. Yu, this is a good idea, but we still need to proceed steadily and not be impatient. The most taboo thing in the business world is impatience. Let Zhu Long and the others go and explore the market. Chen Bingxian said. Atlantis International Group has close cooperation with many top universities in the United States. There are no problems with the technology. It only lacks creativity and promotion methods for the project, which are not difficult for him. 7 or 8 people immediately gathered on the boat. They were all burly men with thick flesh on their faces. They looked at each other with obvious hostility. The man's mouth curled up, and then, in Fuchio's eyes, there was nothing else. She slowly fell down, and a blue brick was exposed at her original position. Therefore, the blood on his body is something that demons have to avoid. Now Lian Ci's blood and the things that Yu smeared on the knife immediately entered her body and began to corrode her body bit by bit. Actually, there is no need for major changes. Just melt this piece of blood pattern steel into this pair of gloves. Mu Zifei said as he handed over the cold light boxing gloves. Nanfeng watched Lu Pingchuan leave. It was 3 miles from the front of the mountain to the corner of East Mountain, and the carriage had been traveling for half an incense stick. Lu Pingchuan concentrated on guarding the carriage and did not look back. Boss Li also gave him a pair of mouse and keyboard that felt nice, saving Dongzi from having to buy another one. Su Hui listened carefully to what Jiang Qianyuan said. He felt that even if he heard others exaggerate and make up stories in the tea house, nothing was as absurd as what Jiang Qianyuan said. My strength now should be that of a lower-level leader, but the average middle-level leader is no match for me, Mu Zifei said confidently. Zhao Jingwen nodded in understanding, then looked at the group of people in front of her, feeling a pang in her heart. Fortunately, she didn't let Chen Shu come down, otherwise the club would really not be able to do business tonight. Come on, Dongzi, sing a song. Sing a song. What to sing? The sky is as vast as the sea. No hesitation. Come on yourself. Come on. Dongzi, with a red face, was pushed to the middle of the box by his classmates. He picked up the microphone, hesitated for a moment, and then began to sing slowly. After a while, several people completely let themselves go and it was very lively. Yuan and Ning originally just wanted to buy as much time as possible and had not thought about completely abandoning the heaven and the underworld. He was very surprised to hear Nan Feng's words. He frowned and said nothing, considering whether this path was feasible. What is the second thing? The appetite of the heavenly lords was completely whetted and they couldn't help but ask. I can't find good words to describe my feelings. He was like my antonym, but I liked everything about him in an instant. Of course, before the truth came out, Wu Yong still had some hope for Zhao Chen, but he had already begun to secretly reserve a way out for himself in case of emergency. Chapter 29. Unfortunately, I am his apprentice. Shu Hongqing's expression changed again and again. Meng Ying hadn't noticed yet and enthusiastically took Shu Jin's hand to introduce her. This is my husband, Shu Hongqing. You and Yueshi are not strangers, so just call him uncle. Shu Jin suppressed the disgust in her heart and put on a smile. Hello uncle, my name is. Su Mu looked at the deep, shallow, unwinding lines on the wooden table and remembered that incredible thing. This was of course what Mo Jungxi hoped to see. Glancing at the middle-aged Taoist priest with his eyes closed, Mo Jungxi raised an evil smile. The atmosphere suddenly became a little awkward. After all, the main things had already been discussed, and the two of them couldn't find any other topics to talk about for a while. Har har, so that's how it is. I'll take care of it right now, so please don't worry, said the old man. The more Song Ryu thought about it, the more he felt that this business had potential, so he began to plan when to go out. Lord God's messenger. Look over there. The Lord of Qinglong City and others are back. Lord Shang said excitedly. After finishing all this, she lay down again, but her mind was highly concentrated on the direction of the door. HMPH. Trash. Is this boy Lin Xiaoran? HMPH, trash, he is not as the rumors say. After this competition, I will definitely expel him from the sect. The red-faced elder had a bad temper and fell down, cursing loudly. With her bare fingers entwined with the beautiful hair in front of her chest, Shi Qingyang smiled sweetly and spoke. The aura emanating from her body was no weaker at all. Lin Debao is that young boy, he is 13 years old this year. When everyone first introduced themselves on the road, Song Ryu was surprised. She didn't expect that the kid was young but quite tall. He couldn't tell the emperor that they were infected with cowpox on their own initiative, so for the time being they could only be misunderstood like this. We are here. At this time, a soldier who was stunned by the shell woke up, endured the severe pain in his body, and raised one hand. Gutuso looked at the two parties below who had different opinions, one advocating sending troops to attack Mao Dun, and the other advocating peace. The Star Lord of Destiny wanted to laugh out loud, but he had to suppress it. He couldn't be disrespectful in front of the saint. At Hangu Pass, the 50,000 Qin troops mobilized here by Meng Ao received the latest military order. The coalition forces of the 6 countries were attacking, and they had to defend Hangu Pass to the death. In the darkness, the man's aggressive aura came over her, and he kissed her eyes and eyebrows while holding her waist and picking her up. It just seemed like there were sounds of other people talking, which gradually quieted down as his quick and steady footsteps sounded. Even though the eldest prince had great power, he was unable to make these tribes completely submit. Less than 5 minutes after the video was released, it was noticed by the staff of the short video platform. They were responsible for looking at data and watching videos. If they thought a video might become popular, they would manually increase the traffic of the video. Tang Yan's father, Tang Lai, came home. When he heard that Tang Siying had woken up, he cried with joy and was about to see the miracle doctor. But when he heard what had just happened, his face changed. "Do you know what you're doing?" the man screamed in pain, and the bloodshot in his eyes became even deeper. This reluctant gaze was withdrawn when it reached its highest point, and the eyes focused on the most beautiful night view. Luo Kang then said, and when he looked at Enruo, there was a hint of happiness in his eyes. "So, this is the result, close up?" He could see some panic in Enruo's expression. "You call me, I call you, occasionally we go to the street to drink milk tea and coffee, and talk about our own things and our own troubles. I listen to you singing for me, and watch you get closer and closer to your dream. But I am still standing still, neither moving forward nor backward." Chapter 30. Something strange. But soon, Dr. Shu reacted. Dong Jian is a medical master, and most of his disciples are teachers and professors in their 30s. The woman in front of him looked very young. Thinking of this, Dr. Shu came up with a reasonable inference in his mind. Teacher Dong Jian has stopped accepting disciples. "You are so young, I am afraid you can't even." In that world, Wenchen gained a lot, but it had only been a month since his last breakthrough of 2 levels. Therefore, Wenchen was not in a hurry to break through, but instead laid a solid foundation. It was at this moment that the golden armored deity released the demon-subduing pestle to block the purple lightning sword. "It's true that I'm missing you, but now that you're here, I feel a little better," Donna said with a smile, and invited Shu Jin to sit down. Up to now, Wenchen has met many students who came here before him, and also encountered some spiritual beasts. When he first heard the news about the roaming grass, there were many different opinions. Until this time, one piece of news spread very quickly. "Then did you know that Cirque du Soleil's global tour this year will only have one performance in Jiangsu?" Lin Qinro deliberately dragged out the word "one" to emphasize the point. Long Luo said, "Saving people is important. The earlier we get there, the less danger Luke will face." Long Luo jumped into the cave, followed by Yi Dao. At the same time, everyone jumped into the cave. After flying for about a quarter of an hour, Long Luo landed. He saw that the light around him was dim, and he couldn't see clearly what was around him. If he had a whisk in his hand, I'm afraid I would really mistake him for a god from TV who had come down to earth. With the help of the enemy's force, Chen Jingyi's figure suddenly leaped up, and in a moment he had escaped from the encirclement and joined more than a dozen elders who came to support him. The huge palm print directly hit the energy wall, and the intersection suddenly sank. Zhu Hai and the other 2 behind him suddenly felt very tired, but they still continued to input mysterious power into the energy wall. And Chen threw his phone on the bed, made a face at it, turned over, and covered his head with the quilt. Song Zi subconsciously stepped back, but she didn't expect Ling Xiaoxian to pass by Song Zi and run towards her back. But the person on her body couldn't wait to start pulling her clothes. Song Yuan didn't know whether to refuse or accept. She still refused, and was very straightforward. Then she broke free from his grasp and walked out silently. That smile was charming, and if you didn't listen to his feminine voice, one would mistakenly think that he was a very charming man. At that time, Xiao Yulin could not even help his grandfather who was related to him by blood, let alone Yun Nuo and the others. Mo Linlin thought about it and decided that she should not be too proactive. As a boss, the thing she should most avoid is people who are microphone bullies. "Qianlang, you can't be so willful about this matter." "I agree with Wu Lian's opinion." Shi Qian also realized the seriousness of the problem and absolutely could not let Su Qianlang treat his life as a joke. Song Zi came to the place where she had agreed to meet Mo Linlin with curiosity. Just as she sat down, she saw Jin Ya coming over. Both of them were surprised. As a brother, he didn't want Shu Li to leave without a trace. As a doctor, he didn't want to kill this possible life. But this was Shu Li's request, how could he disobey it? Wu Jin really refused to give up any opportunity to embarrass others, and took me to the front hall for lunch at noon. The heavy necklace tassel hung on my chest, weighing down my neck and making it very uncomfortable. When Helian Wanjing saw that Shu Li did not push him away immediately, he was delighted and moved in front of Shu Li with his light body. Chapter 31. Little Daisy. But who on earth wants to hurt me like this? Meng Yin once again fell into self-doubt. I have been living in the old house and have not seen strangers for a long time. Who is it that has a grudge against me? She couldn't figure it out. Shu Jin's round nails were deeply embedded in her palms, sending waves of pain through her heart. It appeared on the wall and easily destroyed the defensive turret array on that wall. While speaking, old Qin kept staring at several big shopkeepers in the antique city, and it was obvious that he was hinting at something. Kier immediately got up from the ground, thinking that although this place was secluded, it was still within the academy. This unruly and unreasonable earl's daughter would not dare to hit someone here, right? Husband, don't be angry. Sister Mingyu came all the way to save me this time, so just consider this as a thank you gift to her. Besides, the three of us entered the cave together, so she should have a share too. Gongsun Yinshang advised. In order to clean up the Taiwu mining area and restore the vitality of the major mines, my father decided to implement a rotation operation system, that is, every 100 years, a comprehensive evaluation of the top 10 mines will be conducted, and the worst one will automatically give up the operation rights to be operated by other capable people. Obviously, the key was not taken by this man, otherwise he would not be so bored as to play such a game with me. Diana's expression also confused Kia. What's wrong with her? Didn't we agree not to mention this matter later? Why is she suddenly asking about this now? How embarrassing. Then, if we enter the Shura family guild, what will you do, Sister Shui? Luo Moling suddenly had a bad feeling and asked tentatively. It's a feng shui problem, but it's not that feng shui has a problem, it's that the feng shui form is incomplete and needs to be corrected. Fang Yuan's words were a bit talkative, but the old man understood. What the fat man said made sense, and the players in the holy camp calmed down without realizing it. Just as the fat man said, many of these players actually had friends in the Dark Council camp. If they thought about it from another perspective, they couldn't be angry with the fat man anymore for a while. He Ying Luo suddenly smiled, and Ying Luo felt his hand lighten. Then, the steel sword that represented evil was deflected, and the steel sword that represented justice cut the flesh, severed the bones, and then sprinkled warm blood into the night sky. Wang Wei, you must remember what I said. Here, we are the real kings. You have no right to point fingers. Enzo said with a changed expression. Even if the other party did what Wang Nanbei was thinking now, perhaps Wang Nanbei could only watch Faisal being attacked. As for whether Wang Nanbei could rescue them without caring about the cost of casualties, it was still unknown. In just a few seconds, the wounds on her body healed as before. If it weren't for the holes still left on her clothes, it would be hard to believe that she was seriously injured just now. If Li Fei told Chen Juanxiang that the entire Jigong mountain was his, he would be so shocked that his jaw would drop. Chen Juanxiang unconsciously re-examined Li Fei and Xiang Hailong. After what happened last night, we were no longer as tense as when we first met. We sat face to face, I drank and she ate, occasionally exchanging a few words. However, she was the one who was talking and I was the one who was answering. The sword of fire easily broke through the defense of the sword of Solomon and also left the gate of Alberacy wide open. In the blink of an eye, the two collided with each other. Lin Yi used the 10 directions black ruler in his hand as a stick. All the soul power in his body rushed into the black ruler like a torrent in a canyon. Then he smashed it towards the top of the hissing wind beast's head. Chapter 32, The cat came from nowhere, it is wild and hard to tame. He wanted to kill Shu Jin. Yet he cherishes the daisies left by Shu Jin so much. It's so contradictory. Shu Jin couldn't understand. She slowly lowered her arms that were across her chest to protect herself like a defensive fortification, letting them fall by her sides. She slowly walked in front of Fu Yunchen and put on a mocking smile. Look. It's all my fault for underestimating the enemy and agreeing to use myself as a bet. Now I want to go back on my word, but it's definitely not possible. Jun Kang put her down. She smiled awkwardly and found that the people around seemed to be gathered here to practice illusion, and she just happened to fall from the sky and ruined everything. Although he was unwilling to admit defeat and left some polite words, he knew that Li Yunhui was not a fool. He was secretly wondering what Li Yunhui's intention was. Brother Jishua immediately turned on the computer and showed me the information. The information on the computer was all about the main person in charge of the Hongmen in Jingcheng. The leader was called Jingqiu, and he was also a very powerful person. Many passengers opened their eyes wide, huddled in a corner and trembled in fear for being implicated. The palace gate opened with a creaking sound, and then closed with a bang. Feng Miao lifted a corner of the carriage curtain to look, and saw only the flickering flames of the palace lanterns reflecting the shining armor of the guards. Gao Chang'er widened his eyes in disbelief as he watched the demon cultivators led by Zun Jie getting closer and closer. Fortunately, Tianmen Group itself is a very clean group company and is involved in many industries. The police came to check several times and did not find any loopholes, so they escaped. Every time, Yi Chuxing's blood and energy would achieve perfect circulation in his body, then turn into air waves and spray out from his feet, increasing his speed. "Mom, Dad, I'm back." Mu Jinsi went back to Mu Jinsi's backyard and announced her return loudly. I sat down in my seat on the second floor and looked down in front of me. The stage was very dark, blocked by a curtain, and the lights above were not on, so I couldn't see clearly. The only thing was that there were many people sitting in the audience seats below. Well, is the chakra used up? Just when Ucher Yang was about to seal the 5 tails and end this fast, Mu Qingshua's natural chakra suddenly disappeared. Although the joyful mood is understandable, they have not completely escaped from the desert after all. There are still bandits coming through the underground passage, and they also need to start looking for the trace of the yellow sand messenger. Archie is also having a headache. When other people play games, they team up to fight the boss, but why is it always like hell mode when it comes to him? The power that filled the entire staff flowed into the tip of the staff, the swimming ring. The swimming ring spun like a raging wave, forming a blade of cursed power, a huge blade. No, it is not appropriate to call it a blade. Because last time Sun Fei took the initiative to run to her and gave her the letter, even though Su Ru didn't like this opportunistic and spoiled girl, she still changed her initial attitude towards Sun Fei. They overlooked a problem, that is, although Yi Cheng's identity as a super evolver has been exposed, in fact, only a few people in the evolver sequence know about this. Only those powerful forces have enough manpower to arrange special surveillance or contact with Yi Cheng at this stage. Just do it when you think of it. Yi Cheng used the badge interface to ask. Anyway, the system is everywhere in this world, so the method is not important. Of course, this is the last chance for one of the teams. Gaoto did not have the relief of a winner. Instead, he could better understand the feelings of the two teams on the field. It seems that there will be a victim this time, Ucher Yang said as he looked at Fu, who was completely hit by Shirado. Even if she was completely transformed into a tailed beast, it would be the same. The strength of the 7 tails was indeed too weak. Pain defeated the 7 tails Jinchuriki without much effort. Chapter 33 Get Out of Here. Got engaged. Fu Yunchen frowned slightly because of these 2 words. Can Shu Yin be a good mother to Nyan Nyan? He is still thinking about it. But when he met Meng Ying's gentle gaze, he felt a little uneasy. It took Meng Ying several years to get over the grief of her daughter's disappearance. So, she naturally hoped that she could. But Michael's face was full of embarrassment, but he stopped talking. He stared at Alpha with anxious eyes. The swan was not extremely brave, but had just woken up in the morning, so his mind was not very clear, and he was disturbed while eating, so he got angry as if by conditioned reflex. Har har, are you taking advantage of your seniority? But it is really quite interesting. Anyway, I don't have the energy to play around like crazy, Lei said with his eyes wide open while looking at the laser lights on the ceiling. It was Li Shan's first time in Nanshan City and he had no idea what it was like. He had only seen it on TV occasionally. Now the car had already arrived in the city. Li Shan's eyes kept looking around, his eyes full of curiosity. It is extremely magical, but it also has a big disadvantage, which is that it needs to rejuvenate once every 30 years, and when it rejuvenates, all its powers will be lost. Longzi Meiji stared at Lei and asked herself over and over again in her heart. Unconsciously, she stretched out her slender hand and gently stroked Lei's face. After all, Lei still has a lot of things to do today, and he really doesn't have time to hang out with Aizawa Shuto. Tathagater was not so arrogant as to fight against for Hueo with exactly the same cultivation level by himself. Feeling for exactly the same auras and thinking of the battle with Hueo 7,000 years ago, Tathagater immediately shouted, "What are you waiting for? Form a great formation to subdue demons." As he said that, he controlled the golden lotus and carried himself into the Budo Arhat. That's great. He was one of the 3 most evil people in our town, and he was finally brought to justice. I don't know how many people laughed out loud in the middle of the night. Hearing this voice, Shen Yuan couldn't help but stop his bloody hands, frowned slightly, and looked around in confusion, but except for the alien life forms that were not afraid of death at all and were eager to try, Shen Yuan didn't feel any powerful aura around him, but the sense of crisis in his heart became stronger and stronger. But skin diseases are different. In the eyes of rural people, they are simply associated with unhygienic living habits, and people think that people with skin diseases are not decent. If it is an obvious skin disease, the underlying synonym is generally an infectious disease, and rural people will stay away from people with infectious diseases. Logically speaking, the three of them had a certain foundation, so they would not cause any harm, but what made Lin Yu worried was the technique. If Lin Yu was learning the pure Jigu immortal technique, then it would never be taught without the permission of the master. Fellow Daoist, I want to go and pay tribute to my master. Can you come with me? Qingxian Dragon King wanted to go to the altar to take a look. He wanted to see it with his own eyes. As Yongye Gufan said, Junia sister Ziyuan was indeed powerful. If it were anyone else, it would be impossible for them to deal with the two imperial spirits so easily, not even Yongye Gufan. Wang Yun could no longer suppress the ecstasy in his heart and was immersed in the fantasy he had created for himself. He seemed to have seen Yarn Yi being controlled by the police and taken to prison. How could he describe his feeling right now? Of course, because of this fight, from the beginning of the fight to the end of being thrown into the river, it took less than a minute. Moreover, the Buddha had a silly smile on his face from beginning to end, which is why he got the nickname Silly Smiling King Kong, and the name of Buddha became famous from then on. Chapter 34 The Crux. Shu Yin bit her lips unwillingly and glared at Shu Jin angrily. TSK, it looks like she wants to make trouble again. Shu Jin stopped, folded her arms, and waited for her performance with interest. She really wanted to know what other tricks Shu Yin had in front of Fu Yunchen besides pretending to be pitiful. But Shu Yin only stayed for a while and then turned and walked towards Fu Yunchen. When I saw the fakes, I thought they were just random imitations and the real thing might be from the late Qing dynasty. Now that I see the real thing, I realize how valuable it is. Among them there were even quite a few people in naval uniforms, who also smashed the things in their hands and roared loudly, without any sign of upholding justice. Before this, Chen Feng had asked 8 female schoolmates for money. Their first reaction when they saw them was to be nervous. After learning that it was an apology, they did not want to get entangled with them, so they took the money and closed the door. I stayed at the police station for a while, and I told them that my father did not commit suicide, but there was not much evidence, so they could only treat it as suicide. If the two parties really go to court, he will definitely be scolded by his leader, and he will definitely be accused of not doing his job well. While hesitating, the angry bull roared to the sky. The bullets hitting his body were easily bounced off, and he remained unmoved even when the sword hit his body. An Kang had a warm smile on his face, but it was not sincere, because he could not understand what had just happened. Lucia thought that this was not a place to talk at all, so the two of them walked forward. It was just a short sentence, and it sounded like a simple introduction, but the meaning within it frightened them. Aren't most programmers technical geeks? Why is our team leader so lively? Except for Ji Zheng, other people competing for the position of captain gathered together with the rescue teams they were responsible for and chatted. Their intentions were the same as Ji Zheng's. Elder, please check again. I have definitely accepted the mission. The mission is to find the 10-petal golden lotus. Mu Yu continued. Piero was unusually silent and spoke very little. He had just returned from India and was about to serve as the club's image ambassador. Today he was just here to make a guest appearance as a commentator. Although the distance from Baikao Garden to Qinshan County City was only 70 or 80 miles, it took until dusk to arrive at Qinshan County City. Along the way, the other people were relaxed and walked briskly, but Lu Guang had no spiritual energy in his body, so he inevitably felt a little tired. This is an era where crises and opportunities coexist. Within the Day Walkers, there are two factions, the Mountain Gate and the Academy, in opposition to each other. Externally, there is pressure from the Night Walkers. In such a great era, some people fall and some rise. Later, the remaining fireworks were ignited by the tinder that spread over, and the sound of bang bang was endless. Under the silver jade plate and the starry sky, fireworks were blooming one after another. Sure enough, Li Jin's guess was correct. As soon as Yang Feiqian came out, there were only a few cheers and boos. Lu Guang is a human, so he is naturally the same. The texture is hard, the touch is warm, and it is smooth like satin. This is what Lu Guang touched. Old Qian smiled and handed over 2 share certificates that had been written on the spot and stamped with the factory seal to the 2 winning bidders. While charging, the giant sword rolled up the airflow and tore out layers of whirlpools. The fan-shaped area in front with a length of 20 feet and a width of 7 feet was all separated by transparent flames, and this space was also cut apart. Got it, Mu Shanu. The car sped away, leaving behind only an invisible cloud of car exhaust buried in the air. At this moment, a loud roar came from the far other side of the sea. For a moment, the sky seemed to be covered by a black curtain. After a brief blindness, a huge fiery red shadow fell from the sky and hit the golden sand, startling countless seagulls that were resting there. Chapter 35, Pass Mr. Fu First. Chapter 35, Pass Mr. Fu First. Shu Jin was caught off guard and staggered. Her calf hit the wooden cabinet and she groaned in pain. Fu Yunchen's mother Li Mai's eyes were red and her gaze was as sharp as a knife. Get out now. Mom, why are you here? Mo Liang turned a deaf ear to what Xu Tingchuan said, pretending that she didn't hear anything. However, she felt that Xu Tingchuan was able to say such cheesy words without any shame. She, Mo Liang, felt sick just by listening to them. Why did this happen? Xianglai said coldly as he looked at the new recruits who fell from the tree while climbing it. Eric left the bar with an indignant look on his face, but he knew in his heart that it was unwise to look for An at this time. But Eric didn't know that because he missed this opportunity again, Luo Yixuan was getting further and further away from him. This was one of the reasons why Yu Longqian hesitated when he received a call from Zhen Wanting, saying that she would come to attend the completion ceremony of Chinatown Film and Television City. He knew that these reporters would not miss this opportunity to interview him. Luo Yixuan folded her arms and waited for Ji Ting to come out. She had not expected that the sea was so cold at night. Just when she was about to go in the direction of Ji Ting, a figure immediately stopped her. Who made me a clone? A clone has absolutely no human rights, and a clone has no strength. It's useless to stay here. The most important thing is that I have embarrassed Xiao so much as soon as I arrived here. How can the boss not be angry? Luo Yixuan looked at Dong Fangyi on her body somewhat helplessly. Now she didn't even have the strength to move a finger. She closed her eyes and fell into a deep sleep. Your Highness, have you really decided not to choose a son-in-law from a royal or noble family, but to choose your future husband from all over the world? Yair, who had just been serving the baby, kept moving her hands and asked the questions in her heart. Qingyun frowned coldly, and the long sword in his hand suddenly stretched out to hundreds of feet. With a roar, the long sword slashed out, as if to cut through the sky. The huge sword light raised a vast red ocean, killing all the demons. Rushing towards Hafen, the black wind immediately dispersed when it encountered the sword energy. Thanks to the function of Nelia's magic, the mask that had just been touched twice by Su Meimei's fist really turned into a pig head, making the shy Su Meimei couldn't help but smile happily. Then let's see what they are going to do. There is always a solution to everything. Yifeng looked at the lights in the military tent, his eyes flashing. Yi Qingcheng raised her eyes, looking down at these people with disdain, as if these powerful people in front of her were all ants. A perfect and awe-inspiring aura of an emperor emerged from her. Yi Qingcheng's entire body was filled with a liquid energy at this moment. That energy was even going to replace the blood in her body and devour her blood wantonly. If it really turned out like that, she would probably be dead. From this, we can imagine that the lively scene at the auction almost drove all the male cultivators crazy. Owning this peerless fairy painting is like owning the peerless beauty of the entire Qianxian continent, enjoying the blessing of being with her. How can one not be excited? You never know which will come first, tomorrow or an accident, so, what you want to say and what you want to do must be said as soon as possible, and don't wait until it is too late to regret it. Mo Xian deeply agrees with this. When Shu Jin and her mother-in-law heard him talking, they wanted to say, "You are a heavy smoker, and yet you still fight the Japanese. It would be better if the Japanese beat you to death." But the words didn't come out of their mouths. Chapter 36 I am here for treatment, not to be humiliated. Shu Jin got off the bed, walked to the dressing table, and ran her fingertips over the clean, dust-free wooden comb. It seems that Fu Yunchen still doubts his identity. Does he want to discover my true identity and hunt me down again? How cruel. She fell back into the soft bed and glanced out the window. After a long time, she called Shenyuesh's. Newly reclaimed wasteland has the best fertility. After planting a few waves of crops, it is abandoned and then reclaimed again. This is a stupid way to maintain the fertility of the soil. The fog that was blown to both sides was blocked by Lan Yu using wind to form a barrier, preventing it from spreading to the middle. The sun was scorching. The orcs were holding number tags in their hands, sweating anxiously as they tried to go into the school, but they were all stopped. Since there was no such a big pot at home, Zhang Jingyi ran to the hot pot restaurant downstairs and borrowed the super big pot they used to stir-fry hot pot base. If you blindfold the horses, some of them may have sensitive ears and run around in panic, but they can't see, which will trigger a chain reaction and cause even greater losses. Not sure if it was because she was in a strange place or because she had slept too much in the hospital, but Ji Yu Shaman was not sleepy at the moment, so she simply opened the door and went to the living room. This confrontation was exhausting for us, but for Mr. Husan, it was just a snap of the fingers. Is there any danger? There are rumors that the ancestor of the Yi family was also involved in your mother's disappearance. The prisoner said with a serious expression. After the banquet, they returned to the third room. While the children were still awake, Shui Qinghor asked Lan Shen Huishan to prepare a table of fruits and snacks. The family sat around the table, and even Ji Wei was carried to the table by her wet nurse. As soon as he entered the lobby of Aufeng Hotel, Yi Qingnian walked towards the hotel front desk. Senior sister, please wait for me for a moment, I will go to get a room first. The strength that Chen Feiyang showed before the fall had already shocked them. Zhu Liefu was injured on the spot. If they did not take advantage of this opportunity, they knew that they were no match for Chen Feiyang. However, this fatal blow carefully planned by Horner might be completely exposed to the public by an extremely irresponsible data link information of Lieutenant Colonel Dulles, thus leading to a tragic ending of failure. How could Lieutenant General Horner not be furious and furious? Chen Feiyang calculated carefully that if he could become a disciple of Patriarch Tai Hunyuan, he would be able to change the current situation of the Wutai sect in a relatively short period of time, and he himself would also be able to have a stable foothold. The 5 elders are the leaders of the world government, a total of 5 men who control the pulse of the world. The powerful navy is also under their command, and they have great power over the world. Then there was the last superpower crime that was rarely seen before. Suddenly, it appeared in more places and seemed to be everywhere. Generally, the Governor-General of Military Affairs would consult with the eunuchs in charge of the garrison. Of course, he would generally listen to whoever was more powerful. He was a young man in a dark red suit, with a unique smile on his handsome face. Is that the one-tailed crab king coming again? Everyone's face became extremely nervous at this moment. Yarn Yi Guan, you knew this would happen, right? At the same time, Yizhen roared at Yarn Yi Guan's disappearing back. Kui Bin, I will turn everyone around you into my ghost slaves. Li Mufeng smiled grimly, and finally looked down at the shadow under his feet. Kui Bin also knew that there might be no one left in this strong town, so he should send Noi to a safe place first. Coach Zhu Yoshu was also somewhat helpless. Their whistles in the first half almost completely favored the Philippines. The Chinese team had a total of 6 free throw opportunities in the first half, while the Philippines had 18. Almost every time they broke through, there was a whistle. In this situation, the game was really not easy to play. Chapter 37 Live Like Song Center. After saying that, Shu Jin turned around and was about to leave. Fu Yunchen suddenly reached out, grasped her slender wrist, and spoke in a low voice. I trust you. Shu Jin froze in place. What she had previously sought but could not obtain, Fu Yunchen now gave it to her without hesitation. She was distracted for a moment and forgot to struggle. Fu Yunchen. On their way back to the palace, the wound on Zhang Liang's hand turned dark blue. Perhaps it was the pain that made him frown the whole time. After it chopped down 2 soldiers, it ignored Hardy and rushed directly into the camp, rushing towards Einar. Lin Beichen turned his head and saw that the old man had opened his eyes at some point and was looking at him with a smile. Xie Wei's face was uncertain. He already understood the cause of the situation, so he naturally knew what kind of situation he was in. He also knew that the 3 million gold coins he had won yesterday for the 1,500 scrolls ended up in Charlotte's pocket. In addition, the L-shaped house layout that turns eastward and is similar to that on Cotton Textile Road also makes Suang very satisfied at first sight, because there is also an extra terrace on the 2nd floor, where he can sunbathe, watch the stars, build a rooftop garden, and have occasional barbecue parties in the future. In the corner of the room, there are some messy wires, next to which are cable junction boxes, circuit breakers, capacitors and other equipment, as well as common tools such as insulating pads, safety covers, fire extinguishers and alarms. Helian Yi and Shen Liuxiang immediately wanted to back out, but they were already in the city and it was too late to back down. She had a strong personality and was quite resourceful. She lived in the mountains and caused a lot of trouble for the government. Over a period of more than 10 years, she killed all those who had killed her children. After that, the two of them walked in the city for nearly half an hour, and then a magnificent palace came into view. South. Chimu took out a map, spread it out, and drew a circle on it with his hand. Bei Liuyun looked at this noisy and lively scene, but he always felt that he was just a wandering soul. Without Luo Luo, his heart was gone in this life, and he didn't know the meaning of his existence. Seeing Dai Quan go in to report, he quickly gathered his thoughts, tidied his appearance, and prepared to meet the emperor's summons. Looking at these young people in front of him, Bai Bing secretly smacked his lips. What kind of perverts are these? In the end, Mitsuher compromised and found a guest room in her suite. If Takarki was willing, he could sleep there as long as he didn't mind the simple conditions. Shaking his head, Rococo was about to put the matter behind him, but suddenly he heard Alia's voice coming from the system. Since these people were able to work and earn money while studying, they were known to be hardworking people, so they worked very hard when studying and their grades were among the best in the class. After hanging up the phone and sitting back down at the table, Yangshan actually fell asleep on the table. Seeing a young man and a fat man coming in, Lao Ma was not surprised, and he immediately uttered a sound with a slight hint of Lin Jiang's mouth. So, during the period until logging off, Rococo dragged Chu Juju to a street in Shilan town where trading stalls were concentrated and began searching for equipment. Takarki, whose arm was forced to rest on Mitsuher's chest, suddenly became furious and didn't even want to say anything. He pulled Mitsuher upstairs, closed the door, and severely punished Mitsuher again and again until he was out of breath. Only then did Takarki stop with satisfaction. After hearing Yumo's words, the old man nodded without hesitation, then looked at Nangong Yunyao again, waiting for his words. Today, a large piece of flat land has been pressed out on the hillside of Luwang Mountain as a training ground, where students usually do morning exercises. Chapter 38, Feint to the east and attack in the west. Time to get off work. Shu Jin finished the last piece of work at hand, stood up, took off her work jacket and walked out. When they reached the gate of the park, Chen Yi suddenly chased out in a hurry. Song Center. Senior Chen. Shu Jin stopped, glanced at her watch, frowned, and Har, Lin Yu, do you still remember me, Ming Changgong? Four figures suddenly appeared in the sky in front of the villa. Teacher, you asked her to go back to undergo the ceremony because she is too attached to the secular world and is not a competent light magician, I said after thinking for a while. When used during a breakthrough, it can reduce the difficulty by half, without any side effects, and is extremely valuable. At this moment, although the other party deliberately lowered his voice, when Lin Qingqi subconsciously looked in the direction of the sound source, he found that it was a figure wearing a hoodie and a mask on his face. Xian Yu waved her hands around, and unexpectedly, a slap landed on Nangong Yishuan's face, with a loud and crisp sound. Seeing this scene, Coleman and Gabason's eyes changed, but they were not panicked, as if they still had some trump cards, and it seemed that the light shield outside their bodies was not afraid of this force. No, Yang Lin answered simply. The hearing, vision, and even sense of taste and smell of the evolvers are extremely developed. With the help of such powerful senses, it is normal for Yang Lin's shooting skills to be more accurate. Of course. Liu Sai immediately agreed to Yang Lin. Yang Lin helped Liu Sai and Liu Nian carry the bucket into the tent, then put his right hand in. Within a few seconds, streams of hot steam emerged from the water. At this moment, a gentle big hand grabbed her and walked towards the other direction of the airport. Shu Yuqing wanted to struggle but was powerless. She felt as if her hand was clamped by an iron clamp, and there was an indescribable tenderness. Looking at the pillars where people were tied up nearby, Lin Chong immediately understood that the smell was not formed overnight, but was the smell accumulated from the long-term killing and cannibalism here. After entering, Center Shi Yuan went straight back to her room to sleep. The reason she came back tonight was to be able to get up early tomorrow morning to watch the show. Suddenly, Hitram walked out of the dark space, holding his chest with his hands, and staggering because of the severe pain. She originally thought that Yi Qingyang should still be as hungry as before, but she found that Yi Qingyang had turned his back and didn't even look at her. Su Qingyu was very annoyed that the system dared to blame her. What was wrong with her idea? He was a famous director in the future entertainment industry. Center Shi Yuan stretched out his hand and stroked his eyes. Chu Juming didn't feel anything special, just a slight chill. Ji Hua, who was beside him, turned pale when he heard this, and couldn't help but hug Chen Ran's arms tighter. Chu Chu uttered a few single-bite words in a hoarse tone as she struggled violently. During the shove, the camera rolled off her body and fell onto the road. When Feng Li arrived on the Fox, Yang Shu was standing outside the door of Shen Huayu and his son, knocking on the door stiffly. Although Fan Hu was not used to water battles, at this moment, he rushed out without any hesitation. Since she had decided to bake the chicken in a kill, 2 would definitely not be enough. It wasn't that they were not enough to eat, but it was her first time doing such a thing and she was a little unfamiliar with it, so she was afraid that the result would be inedible. Zero was frightened and let out a low growl, baring his teeth and looking at Xuanyu for help. With his deliberate promotion, Tong Jiawei was successfully promoted and became a member of the 11-member committee. Not to mention that on the city wall, Li Yuan and his son had already taken action. Li Yuanbar wielded the Lei Ji Yuwen Jin Chui and was invincible. He rushed around and no one could stop him. Chapter 39 Little Daisy. But who on earth wants to hurt me like this? Meng Ying once again fell into self-doubt. I have been living in the old house and have not seen strangers for a long time. Who is it that has a grudge against me? She couldn't figure it out. Shu Jin's round nails were deeply embedded in her palms, sending waves of pain through her heart. Hello, is this Liu Xiu? The big guy outside said that you are not from Linbian village. Have you always lived there? Liu Qingqing stood up and asked, looking at Liu Xiu's back. The next day, the 4 of them came together to pay their respects and offer tea to Wanyan, and they chose to do so when Xia Anlan was around. Could it be that the mercenary alliance was paying him 1.2 million as compensation for not giving him a drone? Thinking about the letting go situation he encountered when rescuing the foreign girl just now, it might be possible. Li Tongnan did cooperate fully, but he couldn't say whether Zhuolafeng could help in the end. However, he had known Zhuolafeng before and knew that he was a powerful guy. For some reason, Lin Ling suddenly burst out laughing, grabbed Niu Shilin's field scarf, put it around her neck, covered her face, and fell asleep again. The next day, Liang Qian didn't even drive to the company because Lu Qingzi was on the way. After all, there was a nanny car to ride in when she went to the company, so she didn't need to drive another car. A piece of dough in Mu Qinluan's hand slipped out unconsciously, fell to the ground and rolled twice, and was instantly covered with dust. But when Wang Nanbei was investigating just now, he had already discovered that this cliff was even more dangerous than the place where the demon had just descended. Obviously, evacuating in the same way was definitely not the best option. The remaining 2nd and 3rd class either stayed in Beijing to serve as heads of various departments or were sent to serve in various places. In the previous 2 groups, Li Jie had Hu Buwei as the main person, and the students from the Supervisory Institute as the auxiliary people, who were responsible for receiving these students who came for exchanges. The next morning, the blessing ceremony started very early. Mo Jiuqing did not stay in bed this time. After combing his hair early, he came to the hall of the temple. So, what should we do? Seeing her like this, the man stared at her and took over the conversation with undisguised joy in his tone. As soon as Hu Zi put the corpse on his back on the floor of the room, Fang Mu and Liang Yingshi came over and looked at the corpse carefully. Didn't I fall asleep on the sofa last night? Oh, yes, last night, I vaguely felt someone holding me up. Being full of confidence, treating it as a task, and feeling tormented are objectively the same road, but due to the changes in emotions before and after, they can also be magically different in length. The less you see the end, the more torment you feel, the more you feel frustrated, and the more distant the end seems. Luo Chen was startled, and quickly summoned the magic weapon with one hand, and made a wind escape gesture with the other hand, and pushed Hong Ni and Chu Yi and others who were hesitating and looking back every few steps away from the square platform. Har har, it's not as exaggerated as sister said. The 2 of them laughed and covered it up. When are you is an old fox. We can't do anything to him without any evidence. Now that we know the thing is in Wen Are Yu's hands, there is no need to rush. Gongju shook his head. As soon as they arrived at the cave, heavy rain poured down. There were lightning and thunder in the sky. The thunder rumbled and made the cave buzz. The rock under the skeleton on the cliff had been exposed to wind and sun for years, and a crack had already appeared on it. Now it was flooded by rain and shook by thunder, and was about to collapse. With the humanoid alchemy golem, we can bring in machine tools to our factories. The war is getting closer and closer to us, and there are so many things we need to make. Zhang Yangguan saw it all, especially the slight dark circles under Li Ruyan's eyes. Her eyeballs were covered with red bloodshot, and her face was full of fatigue. Chapter 40, The cat came from nowhere. It is wild and hard to tame. He wanted to kill Shu Jin. Yet he cherishes the daisies left by Shu Jin so much. It's so contradictory. Shu Jin couldn't understand. She slowly lowered her arms that were across her chest to protect herself like a defensive fortification, letting them fall by her sides. She slowly walked in front of Fu Yunchen and put on a mocking smile. Look. The MV director and crew also felt relieved. With the same amount of money, their workload was reduced a lot, so everyone was happy. Among them, Wu Yang's attack was the sharpest. He could not help but manipulate the scissors magic weapon, and the broadsword magic weapon also slashed in the air, sweeping towards the tentacles attacking Jin Wuji. All demons that come into contact with this light, regardless of their level, die in an instant and fall into the bottomless abyss of hell. The performance was still going on, but in the entire living room there was only one GU master, Yang Jun, drinking alone. As soon as the test questions were released, there was sudden silence inside and outside the venue. Everyone held their breath and stared at the test questions. For a moment, the venue was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. Originally they were still a little worried, but it seemed that Li Qingjia's previous instructions worked, and they cut off the other party's possible connection in the first place. Even if they really had a formation that could connect and raise everyone's strength, they couldn't use it at this time. The swordsman almost failed to dodge, but she still left 2 shallow cuts on his chest. The waiter's words attracted even Yifei and Qin Ya, and the three of them had a bad feeling. Before Qin Hai could answer Yuzuman, Meyer and Meiru had already come to him hand in hand. Because of Qin Hai's prior instructions, in front of outsiders, Meyer and Meiru would not call him master, but call him brother and sister. He has driven away. Why don't we sleep here tonight? Chu Wangshu walked over and sat next to her, wanting to see what game she was playing. When the two returned to Ji Shui, it was already dark. Ji Wu took Gibran and walked straight towards Ji Xian's room. 27-year-old Shen Yi had his own child for the first time. He was full of hope, but in the end, everything was in vain. Brother Haonan, Brother Haonan. Li Haonan's thoughts are really hard to guess. To this day, Wu Chuang doesn't know whether Li Haonan still loves Ji Yu Xiaobei. After hearing Bai Yang say last night that they had returned safely, he knelt all night and swore never to hurt Hua Xuanji again, and begged Bai Yang to let her come back. Fellow Daoist, do you really have to fight me to the death? Bao Feihu's voice once again reached Fan Zhen's ears. She continued to distribute flyers. There were still dozens of flyers left, but she had to persevere. She had to persevere for the sake of Zhang Xiang's $100. Brother Nangong, please take them both away and leave this place to me. Wei Yang sent a message to Nangong Hao. 3 minutes. Lu Feiyang's heart twitched suddenly. What should I do? What should I do? Lu Feiyang was extremely anxious at this moment. This fat woman, could it be that she is a hybrid of a human and an animal? Is this scorpion her father or her mother? If it is her mother, I have great respect for her father who even dares to have sex with a female scorpion. The words that came out of Cao Yu's mouth made everyone's face twitch. Qianlong was selfish and did not want to see Zui and Xiaoyan get too close. He did not want Xiaoyan to feel embarrassed to marry him and become his concubine because of her sisterly relationship with Zui. Wang Tian then realized that this place actually belonged to Sun Li. He had never expected this. She couldn't wait to pick up a piece of Osmanthus cake and stuff it into her mouth, filling her cheeks with it, and began to chew it carefully.